Good evening. Call to order the Revere City Council meeting of July 24th, 2017. We'll all rise and salute the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Roll call of the members. Councilor Janino? Here. Here. Councilor Guanasso?
Here.
Here. Councilor McKenna is absent. Councilor Morabito?
Here.
Here. Councilor Novoselsky? Here. Councilor Patch?
Here.
Here. Councilor Powers? Here. Councilor Rotundo is absent. Councilor Zambuto?
Here.
Here. And Council Vice President Keefe?
Here.
Here. Quorum is present.
At this point, I'd like to call on Councilor Guanasso to offer some words.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. We all know the past couple of weeks have been pretty trying for the city of Revere. No words can explain the passing of Bobby Hass, our former mayor, councilor, and friend. Speaking about my loss and of a dear friend of over 35 years, he was a brother knight. He was my holy name partner and a member in many organizations to which we both belong. He was my golf partner, my roommate. On several occasions, we had the opportunity to spend 8 days together, and we're in the same room. We share the same experience and the same thoughts of our families, our friends, and obviously the Revere City Council. Some of the best memories have been the times that Juanita Hass and my wife Linda, we spent going to the Red Jacket. We did that for about 20 years, over 25 years, in the city and the state of New Hampshire. We also journeyed to Atlantic City, to which we have great memories. We had such an unbelievable time together, such a warm and friendly friendship that I'll cherish forever. And also, he influenced me to go to the Bagel Bin to gain all the political knowledge that I need and to share a cup of coffee in the morning with good friends. I could go on and on to explain how much fun we had together. So at this time, I would like to read something that Bob might have liked to say to you. If tomorrow starts without me, and I'm not there to see, if the sun should rise and find your eyes all filled with tears for me, I wish so much you wouldn't cry the way you did today, while thinking of the many things we didn't get to say. I know how much you love me as much as I love you, and each time you think of me, I know you'll miss me too. But when tomorrow starts without me, please try to understand that an angel came and called my name and took me by the hand and said my place was ready in heaven far above, and that I've had to leave all those I dearly love. But as I turned to walk away, a tear fell from my eye. For all my life, I've always thought I didn't want to die. I had so much to live for, so much left yet to do. It seemed almost impossible that I was leaving you. I thought of all the yesterdays, and the good ones and the bad. I thought of all we shared and all the fun we had. I couldn't relieve yesterday, just as for a while. I'd say goodbye and kiss you and maybe see you smile. But then I fully realized this could never be, for emptiness and memories would take the place of me. And when I thought of worldly things I missed some tomorrow, I thought of you. And when I did, my heart was filled with sorrow. But when I walked through heaven's gates, I felt so much at home, when God looked down and smiled at me from his great golden throne. He said, "This is eternity, and all I've promised you. Today your life on earth is past, but here's life starts anew. I promise no tomorrow, but today will always last. And since each day is the same way, there's no longing for the past. So when tomorrow starts without me, don't think we're far apart. For every time you think of me, I'm right here in your heart. We love you and miss you. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Guanasso. I'd also like to ask if any fellow councilors would like to say a word of their dear friend Robert Hass, starting from the left, in no particular order, if Councilor Zambudo.
It's very difficult at this time to say anything. I mean, we're all shocked and full of sorrow, the passing of a great public servant. You know, we didn't always agree politically. No, most times we did. Bob Hass was always a gentleman. Even when you disagreed, you knew he wasn't mad, wouldn't stay angry with you, and it was impossible to stay angry with him. He gave his heart and soul to the city, and we'll miss a great public servant. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. President. Bob Hass, to me, was an employer, a friend, and in subsequent years, a colleague on the city council. My first meeting with Bob Hass was in his office when he was elected mayor. I was associated with the Recreation Department, and he called me up to go over the budget, and it was his first budget as mayor. And I remember so clearly going through the budget and Bob saying, oh, what's this for? What's that for? Why don't we have this? Why don't we have that? And he watched every item in that budget. He wanted to know what it was all about, what type of programs we had. And then toward the end of the meeting, he said to me, excuse me. Then toward the end of the meeting, he said to me, what about senior citizens? I see programs for young kids. I see adult basketball, softball, nothing for the seniors. And he said to me, get something together and come back. And I did. And as a result of Bob's persistence, we have the senior program at the Legion every Sunday night where we have 7 or 8 concerts. And then later on, I became involved with Bob politically. And during his last term as mayor, he asked me to come up and work in his office for 2 years, which I did. And I can tell you now that Bob Hass was all about making this city run the way he felt it should run and the way I believe the citizens felt it should run. I remember we'd go to lunch. We'd go out and get a slice of pizza or a dish of pasta or something. We'd be looking at the watch. It's almost 1 o'clock. We have to get back. That's what Bob Hass was all about. Doing what was right for the city of Revere. Putting his effort and his time in. And then later on, I decided to run for the city council. The first 2 people to come and to my support were Bob Hass and his father, out there Saturday mornings, holding signs, helping me in that respect, helping me in other ways. So I really consider Bob Hass not only a colleague, not only a former employer, but a dear friend. And if you had to say some kind words about Bob, I'd say he cared about his family, dedicated family man, 100% Juanita, 100% children, grandchildren, and then his passion was the city of Revere. And this city will certainly miss Bob Hass as the years go on, and they'll miss the effort. I don't ever once remember Bob Hass coming up to the city council and talk about a personality. It was always about an issue. And he and I differed on certain issues, but you know something? Bob Hess was one of the best city councilors I've ever seen up here in many years. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Patch.
Thank you, Vice President. I've known Bob probably since the early 70s. We used to play softball, and we always had a very good relationship. Sometimes we were on different sides, whether it was me negotiating a contract for the patrolman, the police patrolman, sitting across the table from him, or whether it was on a political matter afterwards. But we'd always go out afterwards and socialize. He was a real gentleman. My heart goes out to his family. He's got a beautiful family, and it's really a great loss for the city. Thank you.
Councilor Novoselsky.
Thank you, Mr. President. Council Granasso put it very strongly into his heart, and a lot of the connection that he had with Bob, I had with Bob. I knew Bob back in the late 70s when he started the J.C.'s, and it wasn't even political back then. It was just, we knew Bob Hess. We knew he was a nice guy. We knew he took over the card shop from the Cohens, and he was always there when someone needed something. He was a gentleman's gentleman, always polite, always professional. Every time, you know, for the last 4 or 5 years, we've been meeting down the Bagel Bin for breakfast. And a lot of times, believe it or not, it wasn't political. We were just friends having breakfast. And I still picture him, you know, when I get up in the morning, knowing I'm going to the Bagel Bin, picture him walking in from the front door with his plaid shirt and his khaki pants and his shoes without socks at the time. And I really, really got to feel like he was a brother. Yes, he was a colleague. I worked with him for many years here at the council, but we were friends. And like Council Powers said, we never got mad at each other. We had differences of opinion and different issues, but we got along. We got along, and he inspired a lot of folks, including myself, to kind of be calm, let things roll, see how things fall. We'll always remember Bob Hess for that. Thank you.
Councilor Janino.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Bob was the mayor as I was growing up. My whole childhood, he was the mayor in the city of Revere. And I grew up, as many of you remember, with those jar openers in my kitchen. And I think everyone that grew up in the city of Revere had a Bob Hess jar opener somewhere in their kitchen. And I had the pleasure of serving next to him on the city council for 6 years. And Bob was always very kind and understanding. And he always would take a minute and, you know, talk to you about something if you had a question or explain something to you. And always stayed so mild and even-tempered up here and just was so respectful of everyone and their opinions. He always was the first one to offer me advice if I asked for it, or take a moment, you know, before or after a meeting if I had a question. And I'm so, so grateful that I had the opportunity to serve with him. And I didn't get to have the personal relationship that many of my colleagues had because they've known him for decades. But I'll tell you, in the short time that I had to work with him, I was very blessed and very lucky for that opportunity. He'll be greatly, greatly missed up here, and it's a tremendous loss to the city. But I really want to thank his family for sharing him with us, because so many nights that he could have been home with his wife and his children and his grandchildren, he spent here in this building serving the city of Revere. Countless hours, countless days. I don't think any of us in a lifetime could accumulate the time that he spent here. So thank you, Bob, and thank you to the Haas family for sharing him with us.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Morabito?
Thank you. The first time I heard the name Bob Hass, or heard the name Bob Hass, was when I was a little kid. My dad had me hold a sign for this guy. I had no clue who he was. I just held a sign because my dad told me to. Years down the road, I ended up meeting this kid, Bobby Hass, in school. It was Bob Hass's son. Got to hang out with him. We became friends. After high school, when I became an adult, it took me years to get here on the city council, years of campaigning, and I would often seek advice from Bob Hass, even though I was running for the same position he was. I could always count on his honest feedback. He'd be like, hey, kid, this is what you got to do. Hey, you might beat me out, but hey, if that's what the people wants, that's what's going to happen. He really was a man of the people, but you could always hear the words kiddo from him. Regardless of how I could be 60 years old, if he was still around, he'd say, hey, kiddo. But I'm honored to say I had the greatest pleasure of this man I had no clue of, that I once held a sign for. He became a mentor to me, a friend, and it was just an honor to serve with him because he did his job with such class, and he was a team player, and I don't think it's going to be very difficult to fill his shoes. And Bob, I miss you.
Thank you, Counselor. And if I can wrap it up, there is no filling his shoes, and we know that. And you know, my brief interactions with him over the last few years, obviously being newer on the council, it's very intimidating to sit up behind this podium and to sit up in that chair. I was fortunate the first year to sit right next to him, and he was a little bit of a goofball, always had me laughing, and I think Councilor McKenna had to keep us in line a few times. But that was I think that's who he was. I didn't know him as long as some of my fellow councilors and colleagues, but he put me at such ease in my first year sitting next to him, and it made that transition somewhat easy. And I can only imagine, you know, being a person as old as my father or slightly older, how wonderful of a dad he was. And I made sure to tell his son that, and his daughters, he had to have been the most wonderful father, and I've only heard that many of times. But sitting next to him, he treated me, yes, very much father-like or like a son, and he put me at ease up here when it could have been he could have been very difficult. He could have been stubborn and not encouraging. My last conversation with him, well, I remember when I was asking for support to run for the council vice president, he was extremely encouraging, extremely. And I wasn't going to do it. And he was one of the persons that put me over the edge and said, you know, Pat, you should do it. If you want to do it, do it. Ask your fellow councilors if they'll support you. And he almost forced me to do it that night. And that was early on. So I appreciate everything he did for me, and obviously everything he's done for the city of Revere. He's an icon, and the city did lose an icon. He will not be replaced. He will just be remembered, and I'm sure the things that he's done over the many years of his service to the city will never be forgotten. So thank you very much, Bob Hass.
Mr. President,
Councilor Gonazzo.
motion to suspend rules to take up two motions.
Two late motions.
No, two motions.
Thank you. Suspension of rules.
Motion 48, 17-259, and motion 61, 17-290.
Can we add mine to it too, Arthur?
Which one's yours?
Count 49.
Calendar item number 48, Council Order 17-259. Motion presented by Councilor Guanasso that the following special legislation be forwarded to the state delegation for approval. An act authorizing the city of Revere to pay a certain sum of money to Juanita M. Hass Brendares. The city of Revere may pay an amount not to exceed $12,143.52 to Juanita M. Haas Brendares, wife of former City Councilor Robert J. Haas Jr., who died while serving as a member of the City Council. This amount represents the salary to which he would have been entitled if he had lived and served until the end of his term in office.
All in favor? All opposed? Oh, roll call. Pardon me, roll call.
Roll call. Councilor Janino?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Guanasso?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor McKenna is absent. Councilor Morbido?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Novoselsky?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Patch?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Powers?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rotundo?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Zambudo?
Yes.
Yes. And Council Vice President Keefe?
Yes.
Yes, the special legislation has been approved.
Vice President, can we take up 4917-260?
Motion presented by the City Council that the mayor be requested to dedicate the park behind the Lincoln School as the Robert J. Haas Memorial Park, Robert J. Haas Jr. Memorial Park.
All in favor, all opposed?
All in favor? All opposed?
Motion 6117-290.
Motion presented by Councilor Guanasso that the city clerk arrange for a portrait to be installed in the City Council chamber in the memory and honor of former mayor and City Council President Robert J. Haas Jr.
All in favor? All opposed?
Mr.
Can I
President,
offer a moment of silence before we go back into regular session?
While still in the suspension of rules, Council Novoselsky.
thank you, Mr. President. Under suspension, I'd like to put a motion at this time that the mayor instruct the superintendent of public works to establish a memorial for Robert J. Haas Jr. at a site to be designated by the family at a future time. Thank you.
All in favor?
After roll call.
All in favor? Councilor Janino.
Can we take all those up on reconsideration with hopes that they do not prevail?
All in favor of reconsideration? Madam Clerk, I ask that we take two more items out of order for items number 17284 and 17285, some communications from the mayor.
Calendar item number 43, this is Council Order 17-284, communication from the mayor relative to an ordinance further amending the zoning ordinances of the City of Revere relative to the Industrial Park District.
Mayor Rigo.
Mr. President, I will begin by saying that the last couple of days, the last couple of weeks have not felt the same. And there's been an air of a heavy air in City Hall and throughout the city. We got through a wonderful weekend, and as I said yesterday, it wasn't the same without our friend. But the zoning amendment that I have before you tonight, this is an amendment that will update and clarify accepted uses specifically for the NECO property. And I expect that these will go through subcommittee and further kind of dialogue. But I wanted to introduce this zoning amendment and make sure that the council understands that the primary goal of this amendment is to encourage high technology manufacturing, research and development facilities in the fields of robotics, laser technology, biotech, and life sciences. This site, and I think the goal of this site that I see for it is to be the new technology and advanced product manufacturing center that we've been looking for a very long time. And once these amendments are enacted, they will essentially set the table for us and for the city and for the owners of that site to go out and be able to bring in some of those folks from the biotech and life sciences community. And I just want to touch on a little bit about the folks who did buy that site. The group is called Atlantic Management, which I think all of you either know or have met so far, and they have an incredibly successful track record with these kinds of projects. And once the zoning is allowed, as I said, it will set the table for us to be able to go out and attract the kinds of corporate entities that we're looking for. And obviously, the benefits in that are pretty clear. By doing this, we will ultimately create good, high-quality, well-paying jobs in our community. And just to get into a little bit about the zoning package, it does add some new uses within the industrial park district. And they include advanced product manufacturing, research and development facilities, technology warehousing, distribution activities, life sciences, manufacturing, e-commerce, retail, brewery, distillery, and winery. And it also makes uses as of right at that site, which would include professional office park, general manufacturing, and bank and financial institution and restaurant use. And I think what I want to make sure is very clear tonight is that the one thing that will not happen on that site is residential. And I know that there has been a lot of conversation about residential development as a whole. There has been conversation about residential development at that property. There have been rumors and many things said about what this site may look like. And I am here to tell you that it is going to remain 100% commercial. And I want to make sure that as we go forward, that we make sure that all of our conversations are based on facts and that they're rooted in reality. Because I think oftentimes they may not be. And so this is just another example of my administration working very hard for economic development, commercial development, and creating jobs, and ultimately creating the type of city that we all want to see and that we all work very hard to make happen. And I will say that there's kind of a theme tonight a little bit in terms of economic development and commercial development. We have a hotel that's also being proposed, and it just falls in line with the priorities of this administration in terms of bringing in that commercial activity and, of course, the commercial revenue that goes along with it. And so, obviously, the future vision for this site is something that the residents of Revere will be proud of and excited about, and will reflect the 21st century economy that I strive to create in the city of Revere. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Councilors looking to speak? Councilor Rotundo?
Thank you. This is exactly what the city of Revere needs. I got to applaud Gus Serra, Mr. Zink from Atlantic Management. This is a group that has a wide history of development of these sorts of, and I believe he's in the room. But this has the hallmark of what we need to do in every commercial site in the city of Revere. we need to be able to draw this type of development here. And more importantly, we need to actually fashion our zoning so that we can entice the various companies and developments into commercial space, and specifically not residential. So I support this 1,010%. This is something that we should emulate in other parts of the city. Northgate is one of the areas, as well as possibly over at Wonderland. This is the type of zoning that we need to develop the city into the 21st century, and I totally agree with the mayor on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Rotundo. Councilor Janino.
Thank you, Vice President Keefe. This will be going to my zoning committee, I hope, and we'll be meeting on August 28th at 5 p.m.
This is going to be ordered to public hearing.
Public hearing, and then hopefully from zoning, gotcha, so it might be a little later.
So it's going to go to public hearing, and then it'll go to kick back into zoning.
Do you know
and
the date of the public hearing? So I
the
can figure
August
out.
28th.
Perfect, all right, so the following, thank you.
Councilor Powers?
Thank you, Mr. President. This is certainly, without any question, a breath of fresh air for the city of Revere. I had occasion about 3 weeks ago to meet with Mr. Zink, Joe Zink, and his team over coffee, and they made their proposal. And one of the things that I did request, and I really didn't have to, but later on I found out, was there be no more residential development on that site. That be specifically robotics, biotech, and that type of business that we're looking to bring into the city. It's an ideal spot. It's adjacent to the Blue Line. And I've said so many times in the past, we have the facility that runs right through there, namely the commuter line, that could support that project with regard to talent also coming in, not only from in the city, but outside the city. It's a project like that certainly would offer the high-end wages that would support our other businesses in the city. So I am 100% in favor of this, and I know Mr. Zink was going to come up here and say a few words. And I think once you hear him, and once the listening audience hears him, they'll be as impressed as I was. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Powers. Mr. Zink, would you like to come up and speak to the... All of Revere is watching. No pressure. Name and address for the record, please.
Thank you. Joseph Zink, President and CEO of Atlantic Management, and my partner, James Vitas, from VMD Companies. Actually, I'm excited to be here tonight because I think every time you go into a new community, and you start the new journey, sorry. I think I was saying every time you go to a new community, it's like a new journey. And one of the things, my dad was in the Navy for 30 years, left high school when he was 17, he on the Pacific. Very hardworking, very simple guy, but he said, son, you get 2 ears and 1 mouth. You use it in proportion in life, you're a lot better off. So we heard early on in terms of no residential, and we agreed. We actually don't think that's the best use for property. Looking at Revere and studying the demographics, we think the best thing we can do is strengthen and deepen the commercial base. While we were in the process of purchasing this property, it was roughly $3.5 million of outstanding taxes and water bill, which is disgraceful, to be honest. We own about 6.5 million square feet. We don't have a single property that has any issues like that. In fact, I was embarrassed at the parking lot. There was potholes like a foot thick. You could lose a car in there. Over the July 4th weekend, we spent a couple $100,000 repaving some of the parking lot and cleaning up all the wetlands. I mean, there was tons of trash in there. But that's the way, I think, if you want to do things professionally, you want to do it the right way, I think that's the way you do it. And it's also, the game has changed. Years ago, there was more, I don't want to use the word cowboys in this game, but it was people running around and playing developer. The game today has changed. The money is bigger, the complexity is much different. To get these projects through the process takes a lot longer. The development teams are massive, the number of people involved in this. So, I mean, we had the pleasure of listening to the city and good, back and forth, and we're excited. I mean, we feel that we can attract a top-flight commercial tenant, strengthen the tax base, and bring in quality jobs. And we look forward to working with you. And please, as always, if anyone has any comments or anyone wants to talk, we're always open to communicate, because I think that's how you end up with a good project. There's a lot of communication. But thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Zink. So this is going to go to a public hearing on August 28, 2017, and we'll hold further comment for then.
Calendar item number 44, Council Order 17-285, communication from the mayor requesting a transfer of $15,000 for the purpose of paving the Northern Strand Community Trail.
Mayor Rego.
Mr. President, this is a funding request to help Bike to the Sea, which is a group that I think all of us know very well. And this is in regards to paving the Northern Strand Community Trail. The city's contribution will be $15,000 towards the organization's goal of raising $67,000. And this investment, the way that I look at it, really reflects what we've tried to do in terms of funding recreation, leisure opportunities for our families. I don't know how many of you have been down to the trail, but it's pretty vibrant, pretty active, and it will be a lot more active if we get it paved. The community trail is a wonderful amenity for our residents and encourages a healthy, active lifestyle, which I am recently in the world of. I've been jogging a little bit and trying to get my health a little bit better now that I have two boys to look after for hopefully a long time. But paving the trail, and I've heard this time and time again from the folks who know very well, paving the trail will make it all that more attractive for families. And so these funds are coming from two accounts. I know that you have some of the details on that, and these are essentially mitigation funds that we're pouring back into the community. One is from Overlook Ridge, and the other is a capital improvement trust fund that is from other major developments. So with that, I think there are some folks who may want to speak in favor of this, but again, I appreciate the council's support, and hopefully we can create a real amenity for our residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Rego. Anyone in the audience wishing to speak or come up and talk on this? Okay. State your name and address for the record, please.
Jenny Mullen, 95 Franklin Street. I'm a lifelong resident of Revere and a Bike to the Sea board member. I want to thank you for your consideration of this resolution to provide the $15K for design and permitting of the trail. I have some pamphlets I'd like to each of you to have.
You can leave them with the clerk. She'll pass them out. Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Any councilors? So this is going to require, oh, Councilor Patch. All right.
Hi, good evening, councilors. Tony Chanka, 13 Clifton Street, North Revere. And the bike path is so beautiful up there, and as many people, if you go out there, my son's property abuts that, and you see families out there with their children going up and down, exercising, and it's a great thing to do. And like other towns have paved theirs, and it's come out nice, and it's just a gem waiting to be polished up a little bit more, and everybody's going to enjoy it so much. And I like maybe the councils will have a walkthrough someday and have another ribbon cutting up there like we did once before. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? It's all right. Getting a little camera shy up there. Any councilors? Council Patch?
Thank you, Vice President. This has been a long journey for the bike path, especially in Revere. A couple administrations ago, we didn't have much success, and Jenny Mullen was so persistent. She came to me, and we got the ex-mayor, Mayor Rizzo, aboard, and it started, and then now to Mayor Arrigo, it continues. But it was a lot of hard work for Jenny and her committee, and we have really we've come a long way, and it's been a pleasure working with them, and to see it finally develop and come in the way, you wait to see what's in the future too. It's going to be really nice, and I also want to congratulate Ellie Baker for she getting involved, and Tony Chank. I can't think of the people that in Revere, North Revere, we have a little group, the North Revere neighborhood group, and they just do a great work, and don't think this has been easy. And actually, some of this money is coming from the Overlook Ridge fund, or whatever you want to call it, that we get for all the trucks that go in and out of there. So again, they should get all the credit. They worked hard, and we continue. Hopefully we can continue and get some more. Anybody like to contribute? We're always looking for money. So that's all I got to say, Ms. Vice President. Is it President or Vice President? Vice President.
Council Novoselsky, no? Oh, sorry, Council Guanasso.
Well, Julie, I think what you sent forth here is unbelievable. I think this is exactly the bicycling I would be in favor of. I'm not in favor of bicycling on Revere Street. But this here is unbelievable, and it's something that we should also cherish and go do and visit. This is exactly what I would encourage my grandson, my granddaughter, their friends, my neighbors' friends. This is the type of thing that you want people to do, and bicycling is a great thing, a great form of exercise, and I think this is the place. Everything in its proper place is well-deserving. This is the proper place, and this is safety. This is you can be safe, and you know that you're going to be riding in an environment that's bicycle prone. It's not out in the challenging cars on Revere Street, because I could never go for something like that. But this here is doable. This is something that we all should be proud of, and I look forward to working and doing whatever I need to do in order to make this come to fruition. And I don't know if $15,000, how much that's going to do, but we will get some funds for this to advance it, and certainly because this is what we want. We want our children to benefit, and we also want to benefit from it also, so I think it's a good thing. I knew I would encourage you to get up here.
Ms. Doucette?
So, thank you for your time and for your consideration on this. Julie DeMauro Rivera on the Move. One of the things that we're most excited about this trail is that if it does get paved, it's going to make it actually accessible not just for pedestrians and for cyclists, but also for our residents that are mobility assisted. So anybody who's in a wheelchair or is being biked in a handicap accessible add-on, this will really add to the experience. If you have not been out there, it is absolutely beautiful. Bike to the Sea has done a wonderful job of trying to put some like seats and places for people to sit and actually just observe the marsh as it is, which I think is a wonderful, wonderful experience. But in terms of development, one of the things that we're noticing in this area is that a lot more people are coming from Malden. They're actually getting off of the paved part of the trail in Malden. They're riding on the street, which I know you don't like to hear. But, and then they're getting back on the trail. Well, actually, they're not able to get back on the trail. They're actually staying on the street. And then people that come from the Saugus portion are also doing the same thing. They're getting off the trail and then getting back on Malden. So we're seeing a lot of commuters use this route, and they're actually on Lynn Street, so it'd be great to get the trail paved, and then they would actually be on a designated lane throughout from all the way from Saugus all the way down to Everett, if that's the case, if that's where they're going. So, and the other thing about the 67,000, this is just for permitting and engineering and design. So we still need a lot more money to actually pave the trail. So we got a long ways to go. So that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other councilors? Nope. So we're gonna take 2 roll call votes on this.
Shall the City Council approve a transfer from the CIP trust account to the Community Capital Projects account in the amount of $7,500? Counselor Janino?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Guanasso?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor McKenna is absent. Counselor Morabito? Yes. Yes. Counselor Novoselsky?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Patch?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Powers?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Rotundo?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Zambudo?
Yes.
Yes. And Council Vice President Keefe?
Yes.
Yes, that transfer has been approved. And on the second transfer, shall the City Council approve a transfer from the redevelopment tipping fees account to the Community Capital Projects account in the amount of $7,500? Counselor Gino?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Guanasso?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor McKenna is absent. Counselor Morabito?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Novoselsky?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Patch?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Powers?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Rotundo?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Zambudo?
Yes.
Yes. And Council Vice President Keefe?
Yes.
Yes, the transfer has been approved.
If I may, since we're at a suspension, can we bring up item 45?
Item 17-291?
Yes, sir.
And then after that, we're gonna return to regular order of business.
Thank you.
Thank you. 17-291.
Calendar item number 45, Council Order 17-291, communication from the mayor relative to a resolution to file and accept grants with and from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. This is relative to Gibson Park.
Any councilors wishing to speak? Roll call? Sorry, Councilor Rotundo.
I would hope that we could use some of this money towards developing either a boathouse or some type of sailing facility down there for our children. Thank you.
I think that would be a great idea. Any other councilors? Councilor Powers?
Yes. Being in the Ward 5 area, I think this is just another improvement that's being made in that area. As you know, we just recently, through grants, through the work of L. Baker, spent approximately $400,000 down in the Oak Island Park. It's being utilized so much more today than it was then, and I think this is a step in the right direction. That certain park really needs some work down there, and I want to compliment L. Baker for the work she's done down there, not only with that, but with the garden down there and all of the other positive things that are done by her office and her associates downstairs. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Councilor Powers. There's no doubt that the city of Revere has benefited from the work of grant writers and giving us the ability to do projects that we may not be able to do. So I would agree with this motion as well, and we're going to do a roll call.
Shall the City Council approve the following resolution? A resolution to file and accept grants with and from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs for the Parkland Acquisitions and Renovations for Communities Grant Program for construction and improvements to Gibson Park. Whereas Gibson Park is a community-wide asset and improvements to this park is a priority evidenced in the most recent open space and recreation plan. And whereas Gibson Park is dedicated to park and recreation purposes under Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 45, Section 3, and whereas the renovation of the baseball field, play structures, walkways, seating, fencing, increase of shade trees, and landscaping at Gibson Park will greatly enhance recreational pursuits at this facility. And whereas the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs is offering reimbursable grants to cities and towns to support the preservation and restoration of urban parks throughout the Parkland Acquisitions and Renovations for Communities Grant Program. And whereas the Gibson Park renovation project will cost a total of $331,700, which will be reimbursed to the city with $106,144 in community development block grant funds and $225,556 in park grant funds. The amount of $331,700 must be appropriated in full and paid prior to receiving the park grant reimbursement. Now therefore, be it that, 1, the mayor be and is hereby authorized to file and accept grants from the Executive Office of Energy and Environmental Affairs, and 2, the mayor be and is hereby authorized to take such other actions as are necessary to carry out the terms, purposes, and conditions of this grant to be administered by the City of Revere, including appropriation of the necessary funding. And 3, this resolution shall take effect upon passage. Councilor Janino?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Guanasso?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor McKenna is absent. Councilor Morabito?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Novoselsky?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Patch?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Powers?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rotundo?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Zambudo is absent. And Council Vice President Keefe?
Yes.
Yes, the resolution has been approved.
Mr. President,
Councilor Janino,
can I just take a point of personal privilege?
certainly.
I
State
just
your
wanted
point.
to acknowledge Councilor McKenna's absence this evening. She is out due to a medical reason. She's doing well, and we wish her a speedy recovery.
Thank you, Councilor. So we're going to go back to regular business, Madam Clerk.
Approval of the journals of the meetings of June 26th, June 29th, and July 12th. Public hearings, calendar item number 13, Council Order 17-222. Communication from the mayor relative to an ordinance providing for a 6-month hiatus relative to the granting of special permits for standing signs.
Is there any proponents in the audience tonight on this? Any proponents wishing to speak? Hearing and seeing none on that side, proponents are closed. Any opponents wishing to speak? Hearing and seeing none, we're going to close that in. Any councilors wishing to speak? Okay. We're going to refer this to the zoning subcommittee, and this can be discussed further there.
Calendar item number 14, Council Order 17-269. Hearing called is ordered on the application of PF Wonderland LLC, care of Elder Partners LLC, seeking permission from the Revere City Council to convert 20,000 gross square feet of general retail space to a health club at 151 VFW Parkway.
Do we have someone from Wonderland LLC up here?
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the Honorable Council. My name is Attorney Emilio Favorito, 7 Dawes Street, Boston. I'm here representing PF Wonderland LLC, who are seeking to convert the space at the Wonderland Marketplace Shopping Center, previously occupied by the Staples, into a health club. As the members of the council are painfully aware, purely retail shopping centers are in decline. The proponents this evening are the same individuals who 5 years ago first introduced Planet Fitness into the Northgate Shopping Center, and has helped contribute to the revitalization of that particular center. It's a pretty straightforward matter. It involves no exterior construction. It's just retrofitting the inside and changing the use from retail to health club.
Thank you. And this is also going to go to, this is a public hearing, so we also invite anyone that's a proponent of this project to come up and speak at this time. Hearing and seeing no proponents, we're going to close that end of the meeting. Any opponents? Any opponents wishing to speak? Hearing and seeing none, we're going to close that end. We'll also offer the councilors, anyone willing to speak. This is also going to be referred to zoning subcommittee on August 28th at 5 p.m. Councilor Novoselsky.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, this is down in my neck of the woods, and I'm so glad to see that there'll be a health facility on East Revere. And I know right now everybody works their way up to Northgate through the heavy traffic all the time, and I'm sure a lot of the folks in this part of the city will enjoy a free ride and short ride and even a walk to the new facility down at Wonderland Plaza. It's a great facility. We were sorry to see Staples go, but we're glad that Stan and Sal want to move in there and have a great relationship with the neighborhood. Thank you.
Councilor Rotundo.
Thank you. Actually, I think this is great for the neighborhood. It's an underserved community, underserved part of the community. And quite honestly, I think this will be something that will impact the health of many down there and take advantage of it. So I welcome you, and I might not be able to attend that meeting. That's why I'm putting my 2 cents in now. Thank you.
Councilor Zambudo.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll save most of my comments for the zoning subcommittee meeting, but I'd be remiss if I didn't give my accolades to the principal and owner of this establishment that runs several of these better than any other place I've ever been in. So I'm thrilled that they want to invest more money in our community, and I wish them all the best. Thank you.
Councilor Patch.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I'll keep it brief also, seeing it's going to committee, but as the ownership has a place in my ward, Planet Fitness, and it's a top-notch health club. I just happened to be in there. We had like a sort of like a, he redid it. He put all new machines in, and he, which really didn't have to be done. The place was spotless, and the machines were. But that's the way he operates. He always wants the best equipment for the people, and I just think the people in East Revere will be very happy because the people in West Revere are very happy. Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is a great thing, and I'll tell you why. No sooner does one business close, and we have another one going right in there, a business that is sorely needed in that area, Lower Revere Street, the Wonderland area, the Shirley Avenue area. I think they're going to do very well down there, and again, the proponent of this business is quite a guy. He's done an excellent job in the past, and I know he will continue to do that. And we're looking now across the street toward Wonderland, and as we all know, the demolition is just about to start over there. As a matter of fact, they came in last week with a check for $23,000 for their demo permit, which went into the city coffers. And that's just the beginning of that entire area down there. And this is just one positive step in the right direction. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Giannino.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I think this is going to be a great opportunity for the city of Revere. They already operate a first-class facility in our city. It's a relatively new gym, and they're already renovating it and putting new equipment in it. So there aren't many places that operate like that. We're lucky. We have several great ones in Revere, but they're a phenomenal facility. They operate it great, clean, nice property. And I think it'll be great for the residents on that side of the city to alleviate some of the busyness for the residents in West Revere. So looking forward to it. And, we'll take it up in my committee on the 28th at 5 p.m.
Thank you, Councilor. And Councilor Guanasso.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. We couldn't have a nicer family coming back into our community to invest their hard-earned money into our community and do what you've done up in Northgate. Certainly, what you're doing to me personally is making it hard for me to escape. So now I can just go in the middle and see, because this weight is coming back on, Stanley, and I don't know what to do with it. So now you made it so easy for me, after I leave the bagel bin, having coffee and getting all the political knowledge you could ever imagine, I can go in the gym and work out for a couple of hours. Welcome to the community again. It's a pleasure to be there. I was there when you generously gave a wonderful donation to the Salesian Brothers. You are just a great family. You just a great make a great commitment to our community. And as was said earlier, one good business leaves, a better one comes in place. And certainly, this is a great addition to our growing family. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Guanasso, and thank you for removing his non-gym excuses. This is going to go to zoning subcommittee.
Calendar item number 15, Council Order 17-270. Hearing called is ordered on the application of John Anisi, trustee of Broadway Nominee Trust, 26 Blacksmith Way, Saugus, seeking permission from the Revere City Council to construct a second-story addition to an existing non-conforming structure for an office and dental lab in association with an existing dental office at 106 Broadway.
Good evening, Mr. Vice President, members of the council. My name is Attorney Lawrence Simeone, and this evening I represent the applicant, John F. Anisi. He's the trustee of Broadway Nominee Trust. The applicant seeks, in accordance with 1740-030A, to modify structural components of a non-conforming structure. As your application has Exhibit A. Exhibit A shows the locus. The property is 106 Broadway in Revere. It's Lot K. It's 1,100 square feet. It's in the general business district. The property has 48.31 feet of frontage on Page Street and 2.25 feet on Broadway. The property is a single-story structure, approximately 780 square feet, built in 1900. I provided a photo to the clerk, and I believe she should have distributed the photos to you. Essentially, it's a well-recognized structure in our community, and it's a very small structure, but again, for 60 years, the Anisi family has practiced dental sciences and services in this particular building. And I have with me tonight my client, Mr. John Anisi, second row there, Mr. Anisi, flanked by his sons. He is here to answer any questions you might have. The proposal itself seeks to modify the structure by taking the first floor, kicking it out to Broadway to allow for a handicap bathroom and a handicap access to this structure. It also establishes a second floor, which is approximately 780 square feet. There'll be stairs coming up to that particular structure that will not allow for public entrance, but will allow for this business to have a business office, a dental laboratory, which in subcommittee I'll explain further why the new equipment is so important, along with the storage and meeting room. Essentially, this family would like to continue to serve the community at this location and would like to continue to provide quality dental services. And this particular request will allow them to do that for many years to come. Mr. Vice President, I ask you to move this matter to the zoning subcommittee.
Thank you, Councilor. This is an open hearing, so we're going to invite any proponents to come up and speak on behalf of this side. Any proponents? Okay. Seeing and hearing none, I'm going to close that side. Any opponents wishing to speak? Any opponents? Seeing and hearing none, we'll close that end. We're going to open this up to the councilors, reminding everyone that this will also be going to zoning subcommittee on August 28th at 5 p.m. Councilor Janino.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I did meet with the attorney and had an opportunity to tour the property. It was a very short tour, and I will say that they operate a really great business and really do service that community in such a small area, so I can only imagine what they would do with more room and more updated equipment. So I look forward to reviewing this in my committee.
Councilor Morabito.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll save most of my comments for subcommittee, but I just wanted to say the Anisi family has been, as Councilor Simeone, Attorney Simeone stated, has been in business in our community for 60 years. It's a business that was passed down by his dad, and it's going to be passed down to the next generation, to his children. Far too often, what we've seen actually recently is some of our businesses along Broadway, their businesses are growing, but they have no room to expand, and they have left Revere. And we do not want a business that is a staple in our community to leave. And in this industry, the dental industry, in order to keep up with technology, you need the best state-of-the-art equipment, and that's what he wants. So he needs the room to expand. If you ever went into his dental office, it is very tiny. So he will need this equipment to grow. So, and I will save my comments for subcommittee.
Thank you. Councilor Zambudo.
Thank you, Mr. President. Obviously, I'll be brief, and I'll save my comments for the zoning subcommittee. However, you know, when a business has been in Revere this long and wants to stay here, I'm, as one counselor, going to do everything I can to keep them here. So I have an open mind, and if we can make this work, I'm certainly going to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Zambudo. I couldn't agree more. We've unfortunately seen a few businesses leave the city after 50, 60 years recently because of expansion. So if we're able to offer some variances to allow this business to expand in their neighborhood and to continue to operate up to the standards of 2017 and 2020, 2030, I want to help that out. So we'll see this in zoning subcommittee.
Calendar item number 16, Council Order 17-271. Hearing called as ordered on the application of James George of Mobility, seeking permission from the Revere City Council to install a 3-foot antenna on an existing utility pole at the corner of Walden Street and Shirley Ave.
Good evening. Take these one at a time. Yes?
You state your name and address for the record.
Yes, good evening. For the record, my name is James George. I'm the permitting manager for New England on behalf of Mobility. Just a brief background, please, if I could. Mobility, on behalf of Sprint PCS, is seeking to install small cell wireless equipment on existing wood utility poles within the city of Revere. I currently have 3 at this podium, but we're coming in with at least 2 or 3 more over the next coming months. We are throughout the country deploying this Sprint small cell densification project. Essentially, there's 2 or 3 ways to do it. The first way was to try to put our own pole that we owned within the right-of-way space. The second is to do this densification project on a third-party utility pole. So we are essentially a lessee of National Grid being the lessor. This is very aggressive in the sense of the deployment. Each carrier is advancing into the 5G stage. I think that's the best way that I have to explain this advancement. It is about intensifying the coverage of any given neighborhood and ward. There is existing coverage coming from the cellular towers and the 8-foot antennas on the roofs and that type of thing. Those have been going on for 2 decades now. The final stage of this, well, there's really no final stage of wireless advancement, is to densify. The need for the bandwidth and the backhaul is absolutely insatiable with the GPSs and the chasing Pokemons, and the demand for the bandwidth that the carriers need for the phones is really intense. This particular proposal is to satisfy that need. We're going to get into the communities and the neighborhoods and the high district residential and commercial and industrial areas, and the best way to do that is to get close to the ground on some type of a utility pole. So essentially, Walden and Shirley Street is Ward 2. This is a unique neighborhood in the sense that it's elevated. It comes up to a peak of a hill. Very dense residential and mixed commercial in there. A lot of stores, a lot of people with cell phones up there. With a 30, this is a 39-foot existing utility pole. It's wood. It's T. It's the T type. Okay. We're going to put a 3-foot antenna on top of it, mount it to the pole itself. There will be no ground space that we're going to need to lease. Our power is going to come from the pole itself, from the wires. We only pull 7 volts with this low-power antenna. It's a 3-foot antenna, but the width of this, the best way to describe it is 6 inches in width, and it's circular, so it's an omni antenna. It essentially plugs in with the power. The coax comes down the pole, and there's 3 pieces of hardware that go on this pole. The first piece of hardware they call a UA relay, which is essentially a microwave to see itself. It's a box with 2 rabbit ears antennas. It's a wireless system in the sense that those rabbit ears will see the existing Sprint coverage in the area, pull it in, and then whip it back out to densify the area itself, to add bandwidth to quite literally a number of blocks instead of a number of miles. So the area by which this low-power antenna propagates, give it a half mile. So it'll cover the hill. And then we're going to go down the street and do it again. Go down the street, do it again. The second box is what they call a radio head. Essentially, it's about the size of a lunchbox. These are designed to not go, beyond the width of the existing circumference of the pole itself. So it's not a big appurtenance. It's about the size of the pole itself in width. Essentially, that makes the thing do what it does. So that's my layman's explanation on what that is. Come down the pole, you have the electrical box that opens up, the rate cap box, and that's where the electricity pulls in. The last appurtenance is going to be our own electrical bubble on the pole itself. I believe code is to 8 feet. So that's really what this thing's going to look like, are those appurtenances that are on this pole. Most poles are somewhat busy in the sense that they have the existing wires going back and forth, and they have the grounds, they have the hole in the ground. It is important to note that there's no ground space, and everything is to code. Everything is to 8 feet, so you can't reach up and do anything with it. As far as maintenance goes, they really maintain themselves in the sense of if something goes down or something happens, we come and respond. The situation with the National Grid, instead of we owning the poles, is we are a lessee. So if a car comes and snaps the pole in half, we respond to National Grid to fix their own pole. So that's a concern, but that is what it is. I know that a lot of communities have problems with National Grid and those guys fixing their own poles, but we have a customer up there. We're contractually obligated to keep them propagating, so we help in fixing that pole up. So for Walden and Shirley Avenue, what the applicant seeks is the permission to do what I just described. This is immediately outside the Orange Grove Market at the top of the hill, a very dense community, and I've got two more after this. Is there any questions or comments?
Thank you, Mr. George. This being a public hearing, we're going to invite anyone in the public as a proponent to come up and speak their mind. Anyone that's a proponent on this particular Walden Street and Shirley Avenue? Seeing none, we'll close the proponent side. Any opponents on this matter? Please come up to the microphone. Name and address for the record.
My name's Patricia Malchiano, and I don't have access to all of the records because it takes too long to look them up. But you guys can probably remember and help me out here. I took my own pictures. Are the poles owned by whom? All of them? All of them? I can. I took pictures of them. And some of them are owned by NYNEX. Now, remember we discussed this before? Remember? There's like 10 of them that are condemned in the city. And the guy from Verizon stood here and said, I'll check those out for you.
Ms. Malchiano, if we could just stick to this particular topic. Thank you.
So if that guy ever came back with the information that we asked him for, okay, let me get to the point. The point is, by law, you can't even put a ladder to a condemned pole.
Correct.
So that means he can't.
That's a very good point. And I would also.
Sorry, I missed the point of all
okay.
this.
Thank you. So, that would be another point that we would probably make with this company and National Grid. If there was therefore a condemned pole, then we should probably not let them lease out the poles.
Well, the point is, the Verizon guy never got back to you. There's 10 poles in the city. You got to identify which poles they are. Maybe these 3 poles are okay. Maybe they're not.
Mr. President, May I?
Thank you, Mr. Yes, Councilor Rotundo.
So what the city has to do at this point is contact the Department of Public Utility and file a claim against them, asking them to have all the condemned poles within the city of Revere to be either taken down and replaced or not.
We did that
And at this
before.
point, that we're, this is what I asked the last time when they came up before the city.
Understood.
So that's what we need to do.
Understood. That would be certainly a separate matter, and we want to stick to Mobile Light's public hearing at this point. But I hear your concerns.
So do you understand what I'm saying? A ladder
Certainly.
can't even go on a condemned
Certainly.
pole. So you got to figure out which poles are condemned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate that. Any other opponents on the matter? Opponents? Hearing and seeing none, we're going to close that end. Any councilors wishing to speak? And again, this is going to go to zoning subcommittee on August 28th. The next three from Mobile Light will go to zoning subcommittee on August 28th.
Mr.
Any
President.
councilors wish to speak? Councilor
Thank you, Mr. President.
Novoselsky.
Mr. President, I'm aware of this project, and I spoke to Mr. George on the phone today about it, and he explained very in detail to me what it's all about. I asked him some questions, but I know we're going to be going into zoning, so I won't get into asking him any questions at this time. So when we come back later time, we'll clarify everything.
Thank you. Councilor Patch.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Thank you for your email. I got your email. Actually, the third public hearing, your third public hearing is in my ward. I'll ask my question now. What does the city get out of this? I mean, you're going to be renting space on a pole. Is the city getting anything back, money-wise, or? Pardon me?
Sorry? No, not on the third-party poll.
Not a third-party poll. Well, I think we should.
If,
Yeah, really. I mean, why should we give you a right to go on a poll in our city if you don't want to give us any money?
how about this? How about this, Counselor? There are many jurisdictions that are asking the exact same question. There are negotiations taking place. The first part of this, I think, is to see if we can have the right to do what we seek. If there is a contractual relationship that you want with the city, we can certainly talk about that, Counselor.
Well, I would hope I'd certainly talk to the mayor about it.
Okay.
And then, okay, I'm fine with that. Let's get some conversation going.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome,
Thank you,
sir.
Councilor Patch. Good point. Any other councilors wishing to speak? No. Hearing and seeing none, we're going to refer this to zoning subcommittee on August 28th at 5 p.m.
Calendar item number 17, Council Order 17-272. Hearing called is ordered on the application of James George of Mobility, seeking permission from the Revere City Council to install a 3-foot antenna on an existing utility pole at the corner of Crescent Ave and Bennington Street.
Mr. George.
Yes, good evening. Again, for the record, James George, permitting manager for the applicant Mobility on behalf of Sprint. On behalf of Sprint, we have a second location in Ward 1, Ms. McKenna's ward. What? In Ms. McKenna's ward, Councilor McKenna's ward. This one is very targeted. This one is very targeted to the Beachmont T, MBTA. Again, the proposal is about a lot of people are using bandwidth. A tremendous amount of people are using bandwidth. This seeks to get as close as I can to that particular MBTA stop, as well as the dense residential neighborhoods around it, get to 38 to 40, 42 feet, whatever I can, and densify that particular area. And again, we're only talking about a half mile, a number of blocks, but what it does is all the people on the T and all the people in that dense area, you currently have coverage, but it's straining my network. And all the GPSs and everything that's happening in that dense area is sucking it away from my towers. This lights that area up, and if you do it right, according to the radio frequency engineers, it essentially just piffs certain neighborhoods. If you're on a hill that can't get covered by the towers, it piffs you in. So again, if I could address it this time, it's a very legitimate question that the woman brought up. I don't much care for National Grid myself, and we would prefer to own our own poles, and we would prefer to utilize city-owned infrastructure. These particular three are for National Grid, co-owned by Verizon, which was NYNEX. Our process with them is they don't let us go up there without a lot of diligence either. If there's make-ready work that needs to take place, that's our dime. If we have to fix something or shore something up. Secondly, we do a structural. Obviously, we're going to put weight on an existing structure that's very busy. If we pass the structural, we win. If we don't pass the structural, this won't get the building permit. They issue us licenses, both Verizon, NYNEX, and National Grid as co-owners of the poles. So before I get a building permit, I will give you the licenses to the inspector. So that's the way that works. If it was a condemned pole, we would have known by now. But it's a pole that's standing, and it happened to be in the place that we needed it to be. So there's Crescent and Bennington. That's what I would like to do.
Thank you. And at this time, I'd like to invite any proponents to come up and speak on this matter. Any proponents? Hearing and seeing none, I will close that end. And I'm going to ask any opponents to come up and speak. Any opponents on this matter? Hearing and seeing none, I will close that end. Any councilors wishing to discuss on this matter? Councilor Morabito.
Mr. George, I just have a quick question. So I know you said it would improve the range. So you're certain that this will improve the signal around Suffolk Downs area in that plaza as well?
Yes.
It will?
Yes.
Because right now, that's a dead zone. I've got so many calls from Beachmont residents, I'm sure Councilor McKenna has as well, about the signal that's just not there. It's obsolete. It's basically, you pick up the phone, it's a drop zone all the time. So this would, what is the percentage rate of this work in? Is it a good odds? It will definitely work.
Yes, on behalf of Sprint.
Okay. Because
area-
they put a tower in there, I believe, in Beachmont, and they said the same thing, that would improve the signal down there, and this was about 6 years ago, and it did not. I'm not sure which company it was, but...
What I can say, as a layman, and I've been doing this for 2 decades now, this densification project, to densify means what you think it means. We have a problem with the number of people that are sucking bandwidth out of the current towers structures, right? Which is leaving the people that just want to talk on the phone and text or drive by without bandwidth, because all these other people are downloading movies and using their GPSs. The word densify is to stick something right in the middle of it and light it up. And just
I understand how it works, but I'm just saying, how do we know? So studies have been performed that we're not going to need more capacity. We're not going to need another structure.
Well, okay.
Or this will be enough to handle the capacity.
If you speak just in terms of the entire Beachmont neighborhood, okay, including Suffolk Downs, including Route 1A, including that area, there may be others that come in the sense that to cover a college campus, say, or to cover that area, you've got one that will propagate. You put one over here, it propagates and meets it. So I can't say that this one will solve the problem. I can say that I have a couple of more coming in that I'm going to go in certain areas over in Beachmont that will help it.
Okay, because I just want you to understand, I understand how it works, but when a constituent comes to us, they don't want half of a solution. They want a full solution. So if I have some answers, I could go back and give them a happy medium.
I see.
Okay, thank you for your information.
You're welcome.
Councilor Rotundo.
Thank you. Hi, sir. How are you today? A couple of questions. One, it's really not relevant to this in a sense. We just recently had the Sandcastle Festival, and my question is when I looked at what they did down at the Esplanade during the 4th of July, they increased capacity and the ability to increase bandwidth and obviously data. How would you be able to do that for the city for the upcoming festival? Because I have a feeling it's going to be a very large one, considering also that you have a considerable amount of people on Sprint within this area in order to facilitate for that time period. It's also a public safety issue too.
Where's the festival take place? Is it at the beach?
Yes, sir.
All right.
Maybe a repeater or something like that off of the tower. You have a band zone that you know you can.
I have a total of 5 coming in. These 3 and 2
Yes,
more.
sir.
Yes. We're covering, we're targeting the Beachmont area and the beach area, so we're looking real hard at densifying this beach. And there's a map in here that I can distribute if you let me find it.
Sure
I don't
thing,
want to
sir.
take up a whole bunch of time with it, but there was a map of locations. We're in this area here. Suffolk Downs is important to us, and the beaches and the Beachmont area is important to us. So the way that they designed this is radio frequencies engineers look at this and say, how long will it go? How far will it go? Boom. They get on the other side of it and they meet it. So we're looking to really densify that area.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Councilor Rotundo. Any other councilors wishing to speak? Referring this to zoning subcommittee on August 28th at 5 p.m.
Calendar item number 18, Council Order 17-273. Hearing called is ordered on the application of James George of Mobility, seeking permission from the Revere City Council to install a 3-foot antenna on an existing utility pole at the corner of Marshall Street and Pemberton Street.
Very good. Thank you very much. This is in Ward 6, Councilor Patch's ward. This is a very important area for us. It is a high-density commercial, obviously. As the Rotary comes around Route 60, it will cover all the way to Route 1. And also, our target is that there's residential areas off to the right, but our target is the high volume of commercial areas off to the left-hand side, behind the Uno, and that whole area. So again, it's a 38-foot existing wood pole. There's an existing light on it. We're looking to put the antenna on top of it and light that area up. That's what we're looking to do there. It's an important area.
Thank you. Well, we're going to go to public hearing first.
I just got,
Proponents and opponents first.
oh, okay.
So any proponents on this particular matter? Any proponents? Hearing and seeing none, we're going to close that in. Any opponents? Any opponents on this matter? Hearing and seeing none, we're going to close that in. Councilors, Councilor Patch.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I would just like to mention again that I know other towns are in negotiations with you. I just want to make sure that we get in the negotiations with you too.
How about this, Mr. Patch? And
By the next, by the public hearing, it would be
by
nice.
the public hearing on the 28th? All right.
Zoning.
I have
The
absolute.
zoning, rather. Yeah.
Okay. I have absolute, I'm going to say this into the record, okay? I have absolutely no problem with negotiating on behalf of mobility in the city. I would very much prefer to utilize city-owned assets than a third-party National Grid asset. That's third on my list. We tried for the new poles. That didn't go over very well. That's best for me. We are involved with the City of Boston. We are one of the 4 parties that are building out the City of Boston. We are essentially, that program there is they've got decorative lights, they've got the Cobra lights, they've got the metal lights, they've got all kinds of different lights. We are essentially ripping them out and replacing them. So it's a replacement program. So we do own that structure. We're paying them on behalf of not only for the replacement of their lights, an annual fee, but the agreement is public record. I will forward it to the mayor, so they get paid on if we do a wood pole as well. So it's happening around me, and it was a legitimate question. So before the 28th, I will engage with the mayor.
Any other councils? If I could just make a few comments as well, before the zoning subcommittee on the 28th. If you could bring a physical, would you have a physical model of the antenna? If you could bring a physical model, I think that would be helpful for people to be able to gauge the size and what it would look like.
You mean an actual antenna?
Yes, an actual antenna.
I could
if
probably
you
pull that off, yeah.
And number 2 is if you could also just bring a guarantee or record that the poles that you will be potentially going on are not condemned and they're in good standing.
Okay.
Appreciate that.
Yes.
All right, and this is going to go to zoning subcommittee. Thank you.
Okay, just go ahead. As a matter of what just happened here, you have approved them to go to subcommittee. You haven't approved them for bill.
This matter is a public hearing, so it gives anyone in the city ability to come up and speak on behalf if they are for or against it.
Yes.
So it gives the council a gauge of what the interest is on the public.
Yes.
And then we can take that information into zoning. So zoning is where you would get approval from the zoning subcommittee. Then it would get kicked back to the regular council meeting and approved. So you are not approved, but it is gone through the public hearing process.
Is the zoning subcommittee a group of this body, or is
It
it?
is a group of this body. body, yes.
Okay, very good. Thank you for that.
Mr. Vice President,
Yes.
just for his knowledge, I'm the chair of the zoning subcommittee, and we're going to be meeting on the 28th at 5 p.m.
Hi. In this chamber? Okay.
Thank you.
You are.
On to committee reports, the appointment subcommittee report of Councilor Guanasso.
Councilor Guanasso.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. Earlier this afternoon, the appointment subcommittee met and we had several items on the agenda. First, we had 17-232, the appointment of McGrath Enterprises as a licensed drain layer. That was approved. Second, we had 17-237, reappointment of J&A Contracting and Licensed drain layer. 17-238, reappointment of Callahan, Inc. as a licensed drain layer. 17-245, reappointment of LaMontagne Brothers as a licensed drain layer. 17-254 is the appointment of L. Baker to the Parks and Recreation Commission. The appointment of Jana Como to the Cultural Council was placed on the table. She did not attend. 17-256, reappointment of Raphael Construction as a licensed drain layer. That was approved. 17-257, reappointment of Tough Construction as a licensed drain layer. That was also tabled. They were not in attendance. 17-258, appointment of Insight Construction as a licensed drain layer. That was approved. And 17-292, reappointment of Ann Raponi to the Conservation Commission. That was also approved. I asked Mr. Vice President that we take these all together unless there's any objection by any member of the City Council. They were all voted out favorably.
Mr. President, if I may, I know I couldn't attend the meeting this afternoon, but I just want to bring attention to Insight Construction to give us a more up-to-date insurance liability package. The package ends in August.
Your absence was missed this afternoon.
Thank you.
So we're going to ask that we take up and approve everything except for 17-255.
And 17-257.
In 17-257, would that be approved?
Tabled.
Tabled, okay.
Both of those were tabled.
So we're going to ask to table 17-255 and 257, and we're going to have a roll call on the rest as a bundle.
Shall the City Council confirm the appointments as reported by Chairman Guanasso? Councilor Janino?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Guanasso?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor McKenna is absent. Councilor Morabito?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Novoselsky?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Patch?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Powers?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rotundo?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Zambudo?
Yes.
Yes. And Council Vice President Keefe?
Yes.
Yes, the appointments have been confirmed. On to the zoning subcommittee report of Councilor Janino.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. The zoning subcommittee met earlier this evening and discussed two items. The first was calendar item 17-241. A hearing called is ordered on the applicant of Eastern Equity Partners for the property at 428 to 448 American Legion Highway. This was voted out unanimously in favor by the subcommittee, pending site plan reviews recommendations. So at this time, I will ask for a roll call if no one has any questions.
Any councils?
So, and I wish to vote on this, subject to the findings of the site plan review.
Roll call?
Shall the City Council grant the relief requested by Eastern Equity Partners, LLC, through special permit C-17-07 for 428-448 American Legion Highway, subject to the findings and conditions of site plan review? Councilor Janino?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Guanasso?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor McKenna is absent. Councilor Morabito?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Novoselsky?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Patch?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Powers?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rotundo?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Zambudo?
Yes.
Yes. And Council Vice President Keefe?
Yes.
Yes, the special permit is granted, subject to the findings and conditions of site plan review.
Mr. President, suspension of the rules,
Suspension rules granted.
reconsiderations in hopes that it will not prevail.
Motion to reconsider. All approved?
The second item on our agenda was calendar item 17-242. A hearing called is ordered for the application of JBX Developers regarding 49-54 Revere Beach Boulevard. This was also voted unanimously in favor by the subcommittee, and our Mayor, Brian Arrigo, spoke during the subcommittee in favor as well, and he's here again. Would you like to make any comments, Mr. Mayor?
If you don't mind,
Mayor Arrigo.
Mr. Vice President. So the Revere Beach Hotel, I am standing before you at a time when we have the single largest commercial-only development on Revere Beach in over 20 years. It certainly says something about our economy. It certainly says something about the direction that the city's going in. As the council knows, we have a proposal for a 9-story hotel that will include outdoor seating at the ground level and outdoor restaurant seating, or ocean view restaurant amenities. And I can't say enough about the fact that this hotel has the opportunity to be a beautiful landmark on the beach, one, and quite frankly, could be an icon for the city. We saw, as I mentioned earlier this afternoon, the hundreds of thousands of people that came down to Revere Beach this weekend, and we get that opportunity each year to show off what we have to offer. And I can't think of a better development than this kind of hotel. Convenient access to public transportation, the airport, the Seaport District. The thought is that this will be a popular destination for both business travelers and tourists, and will ultimately be a complement to what we host on the beach. And it was a wonderful weekend, and I think we can all imagine the kind of destination that a restaurant and a cafe outside would be for a weekend like the sand sculpting week. And on top of that, we're looking at taking a fairly blighted piece of property and turning it into, as I said, an icon for the beach. And on top of that, we have the benefit of the commercial taxes that will be generated. Right now, property taxes on that site amount to about $20,000. We're looking at upwards of $400,000 being produced out of that site. And in addition to the Community Improvement Trust Fund, which helped fund our bike path earlier tonight, we would be looking at a significant contribution somewhere in the range of $300,000 to that Community Trust Fund. So again, it's wonderful to have top-notch quality developers coming into the city. It's great to have commercial development, and this is the direction that the city is going in. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Arrigo.
Motion to approve the application.
Conditions to the
Any councilors
findings of
wishing to
site plan
speak?
review?
Thank
Councilor
you.
Rotundo.
I would just hope the mayor would take the opportunity to request of JBX developers to look in the feasibility of a project labor agreement with responsible developers within the area. I think that would be a good thing for the workers of Revere. This is a site that has been through this council numerous times to change the zoning so that this can take place starting back in 2010. So it's come a long way, and above and beyond the fact that we're going to get such a gracious amount of tax dollars, I would hope that they'd be able to employ Revere residents in order to build this magnificent hotel. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Rotundo. So this item it's not up for, if you'd like, well, Mr. Rose, come on up. Yep, sorry. Just state your name and record.
Wayne Rose, 189 Coolidge Street, Revere. I just have a question. Is any of this union work? Is any of it union work? The hotel?
Councilor Rotundo?
Actually, that's what I was just asking, if the mayor could look into having a project labor agreement with the responsible developer. And my opinion is that a responsible developer is someone that has a pension program, a training program, and generally those that hire from within the city. And my experience, it's been the unions. So that's my impression.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Rotundo. I believe you have a motion later on tonight discussing something similar to this, correct? Councilor?
As a point of information, you,
State your point.
the mayor can suggest that, but there is absolutely no leverage to direct a developer to have a project labor agreement. So I just want to make that clear that we don't dictate up here.
We asked.
We ask is right.
Thank you, Councilor Zambudo. At this point, this is going to go to a roll call vote with the conditions and findings of site plan review.
Shall the City Council grant the relief requested by JBX Developers, Inc. through special permit C-17-08 for 49-54 Revere Beach Boulevard, subject to the findings and conditions of site plan review? Councilor Janino?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Guanasso?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor McKenna is absent. Councilor Morabito?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Novoselsky?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Patch?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Powers?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rotundo?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Zambudo?
Yes.
Yes. And Council Vice President Keefe?
Yes.
Yes, the special permit has been granted, subject to the findings and conditions of site plan review.
Suspend rules again, please.
Suspension of rules granted.
Reconsideration. I hope it
Motion
will
to
not
reconsider.
prevail.
All in favor?
Report of the Public Safety Subcommittee of Councilor Patch.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We met at 5 o'clock today, the Public Safety Committee. We had two issues. The first issue, we discussed the installation of a pedestrian single light on Salem Street by Oaklook Ridge. After discussion with Frank Stringy, community planner, and Paul Rupp, we agreed that, and I personally had a meeting with the people of Overlook last week, and they were in favor of maybe participating in paying for this. So I would like to put a motion in, my motion to go before the Traffic Commission to get things started. If you, Madam Clerk, you could read the motion and we could vote on it.
Councilor Patch's motion reads that the mayor request the Traffic Commission, in conjunction with the DPW, to install a pedestrian crossing signal at Salem Street and Overlook Ridge. Residents of Overlook have a difficult time safely crossing Salem Street from the bus stop.
All in favor? So ordered.
The second item we had was related to the proposed Route 1 Highway Improvement Project. As everybody in Revere knows, traffic in my ward, Ward 6, well, to the whole city, but basically Ward 6 on the Washington Ave, Linden Square, Salem Street area. The traffic is all caused by the backup up in Route 1. And we discussed ways to come. Paul Rupp came before us, and he explained that Mayor Arrigo and the city manager of Saugus have been working together to get a plan together, hopefully with the other towns up in Route 1, to get this going. We are going to we're going to table this for further discussion. I also got a text from Chief Guido, who supposedly has some information. He's working with Mass Highway on this, so I'm looking forward to working with the chief and the mayor to get this maybe finally happening. We've been waiting a long time for those 2 lanes to become 3 lanes, and they always seem to forget about Revere. So we'll keep working hard, and hopefully we'll have another meeting in the near future concerning this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Patch. So this is going to stay in Public Safety Committee. All in favor?
Rule 23, Committee Reports. In accordance with Rule 23 of the City Council Rules of Order, the following motions are being reported out of committee with a recommendation to be placed on file. Calendar item number 19, this is a motion of Councilor Novoselsky relative to certain revisions to Title 8 concerning health and safety.
Mr. President, if I may, since we're so late in the season, and we're going to be closing out in a couple months, I'd ask that this be placed on file, and we'll have it resubmitted in the next session. Thank you.
Calendar item number 20, motion presented by Councilors Janino and McKenna relative to designating parks as drug, alcohol, tobacco, and weapon-free zones.
Mr. Vice President,
Councilor Genino, place
can
on
we
file.
keep this in committee?
Keep this in committee.
Calendar item number 21, motion presented by Councilor Rotundo. This is relative to lessening overdoses at Dunkin' Donuts and other locations.
Councilor Rotundo.
Back in committee, please.
Remain in committee, please.
Calendar item number 22, motion presented by Councilor Rotundo. This is relative to establishing foreign trade zones.
Councilor Rotundo.
Place on file.
Placed on file.
Calendar item number 23, motion presented by Councilor Rotundo, that the city adopt an ordinance relative to the registration of drones within the city of Revere.
No, back in committee, please.
Placed in committee.
Calendar item number 24, motion presented by Councilor Rotundo, relative to the adoption of a transit-oriented development overlay district from 1A North to Route 60 East.
Councilor Rotundo.
Placed on file.
Placed on file.
Ain't no gonna do anything anyway.
Calendar item number 25, motion presented by Councilors Powers and Janino. This is relative to Wheelabrator's recent problems at its facility last year.
Councilor Powers.
Placed on file.
Placed on file.
Calendar item number 26, motion presented by Councilor Novoselsky relative to privately contracting out signage work for the city.
Councilor Novoselsky.
Place on file, Mr. President.
Placed on file.
Calendar item number 27, this is communication from Mobility relative to cell equipment locations on streets within the city.
Placed on file.
Calendar item number 28, motion presented by Councilor Rotundo. This is a motion relative to seeking federal, local, and state money relative to Gibson Park Boating Center.
Councilor Rotundo.
Back in committee.
Placed in committee.
Calendar item number 29, motion presented by Councilor Rotundo, feasibility of creating walking trails and kayak canoe launch at the Seaplane Basin Trail.
Councilor Rotundo.
Back in committee.
Placed in committee.
Calendar item number 30, motion presented by Councilor Rotundo, that the city look into the feasibility of changing the city charter to make the Board of Health an elected position.
Councilor Rotundo.
Back in committee.
Placed in committee.
Calendar item number 31, motion presented by Councilor Rotundo, that the City Council draft an ordinance that all city government meetings be held after 6 p.m.
Councilor Rotundo.
Back in committee.
Placed in committee.
Calendar item number 32, motion presented by Council Vice President Keefe. This is relative to an update on implementing citywide residential parking.
We'll place this on file as I have another motion later tonight in the same manner.
Calendar item number 33, motion presented by Councilor Rotundo. This is relative to a certificate for Wayne Rose.
Councilor Rotundo.
Back in committee.
Calendar item number 34, motion by Councilor Rotundo relative to ISD funding for rodent bait traps.
Placed on
Counselor.
file.
Placed on file.
Calendar item number 35, motion of Councilor Rotundo that the City Council go on record against any effort to make Massachusetts a sanctuary state. Additionally, that the mayor disclose the current policy regarding Revere Police Department participation with ICE and any other federal agency.
Councilor Rotundo.
Placed on file, excuse me, placed back in committee.
Back in committee.
Calendar item number 36, motion presented by Councilor Rotundo. This is relative to the principles of Suffolk Downs appearing before the City Council.
Councilor Rotundo.
Placed back in committee.
Back in committee. Madam Clerk, could you schedule that for the next economic development meeting before our next City Council meeting? Thank you.
On to communications, calendar item number 37, communication from the mayor relative to the appointment of L. Baker to the Parks and Rec Committee.
This item was already taken up at Councilor Guanasso's appointment subcommittee report.
That would be the same with calendar items number 38,
Information, Mr. President.
39.
All of these communications, with the exception of 42, have been taken by the, up by the appointment subcommittee.
Yep.
You are correct.
On to calendar item number 42, communication from Dan McGuire requesting special municipal employee designation to perform work as a security guard within the school department.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Any councilors wishing to speak on this?
Send this to Legislative Affairs Committee.
Councilor Rotundo.
If we could have a communication from the city solicitor as to this issue, that would be great as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Rotundo. Any other councilors wishing to speak? I think I agree with that. It gives the opportunity for the city solicitor to give us some guidance on this matter. Thank you very much. This will go to all in favor of sending this to Legislative Affairs.
Calendar item number 47, communication from the Director of Finance as it relates to the Fowler Avenue Water Main Repair, Sump Pump, and Paving Project. This is a transfer from the Water and Sewer Stabilization Fund to the Water and Sewer Enterprise Fund in the amount of $153,000.
Any councilors wishing to speak on this matter? I believe Nick Rystrom sent us some communications on this as well. Madam Clerk?
Mr. President.
This requires a roll call
This has
vote.
to go, no, this has to go to committee.
Ways and
This
Means?
has to go to the Ways and Means Committee by ordinance.
Okay. What are the Ways and Means? All in favor?
On to motions.
Before we get to motions, if I could just ask Councilor Rotundo, I know you delighted us with 7 motions tonight. If you could just let me know the 2 that you would like to withdraw or to hold for the next meeting.
I'm going to take up 58.
You're going to take up 58?
Number 58.
Thank
yes.
you. And there's one more?
No, I'm only-
Just one, Councilor
I'm only
Zambudo?
taking one.
Okay, so if Councilor Rotundo could
I
just
don't
let
want
us...
to enable them. You know?
I understand. Councilor Rotundo?
Wow.
Would you like me to put the last...
Yes, I'm going to have 51,
51,
56,
56,
And 59, what I'd like to have read into the calendar would be 60.
60?
And that's it for now. The rest we can take up at a later date.
And the remaining that we will take up at a later date. So 51, 56, 59, Councilor Zambudo is going to take up number 58, and number 60 will be taken up by the council. Thank you.
Can we hold 54 until Councilor McKenna is able to join us?
Councilor McKenna, when we get to that, she had sent out some communication. She would appreciate us taking that up for her on her behalf.
Even better.
So on calendar item 50, on calendar item number 50, Councilor Rotundo, you're holding that one, just to be clear?
That's correct,
Okay,
Madam
all right.
Clerk.
So calendar item number 51, motion presented by Councilor Rotundo, that the mayor request the state auditor to audit all outside legal work to include billable hours and scope of work from 2016 to present. Additionally, that an audit of the Revere Police Department operations, expenditures, procurement process, grant allocation and use, and review the systemic operation of the police department.
Councilor Rotundo.
Thank you. Several weeks ago, the mayor came before this body and stated that he needed a top-to-bottom assessment of the Revere Police Department. Frankly, I believe the best body to do that is the state auditor, who would utilize the state police and other state assets to do such a thing. They did it up in Lawrence, and they've done it outside in other venues as well. I believe Springfield was the other community. I don't believe that the mayor or anybody within the city, or for that matter, any outside legal counsel, has the capacity nor the sophistication to do such an audit if what the mayor claims is a need for a top-to-bottom assessment and reorganization. I think this would be the best way to do it. I think it would be the most feasible way to have it be non-political and go by the results of the state auditor, as was done with the DPW several years back. So that's my position, and I would hope that you all would vote in favor of it. I would hope that the mayor would consider it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Rotundo. Any fellow councilors? Councilor Janino.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I will be recusing myself from this because it is in regards to the police department.
Noted. And Councilor Patch will be recusing as, oh, no. Oh, you'd like to speak, Councilor Patch?
No, thank God. I just want to say that, I kind of agree with the state audit, but I've been waiting quite a while here for a state audit for the CDM Smith to give an answer on that audit. I would hope Councilor Rotundo could find a quicker route to maybe get than I did in order to get an audit. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Patch. So I think this would be where there's an expenditure going to Ways and Means Subcommittee. Councilor Rotundo, you good with that?
That's fine, thank you.
All in favor? So ordered.
Calendar item number 52, motion presented by Council Vice President Keefe, that the mayor be requested to provide the city council on the implementation of citywide resident permit parking.
Permission to speak from the chair? Thank you. I'll keep it brief, but this has been passed by all of this honorable body about a year ago, so we'd like to see this happen, and I'd like to get the mayor to give us some sort of a recap on where it stands and how soon this program will be implemented. Fair enough? Thank you. All in favor?
Calendar item number 53, motion presented by Councilors Janino and McKenna, that the mayor contact the Boston Globe Free Weekly for the purpose of banning the advertising flyers that are being thrown from delivery vehicles all over the city. Some residents do not pick these flyers up and are left littering the streets and sidewalks.
Councilor Janino.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I spoke with Councilor McKenna regarding this several weeks back, and this is something that I've put in several times. It's a blatant disrespect to our city. They're all over the place. They throw them in the storm drains. They're throwing them in people's front lawns. It's just an absolute disgrace. You'll find 3 or 4 of them in a bush because they don't have the courtesy to put them on stairs. and this is the majority of our city. There are several areas where they do, put them on the stairs and help people, but the realization is the other 80% are just thrown. And I know that our residents do appreciate this. I know that our residents like the flyers and they use it, but there has to be a better way to give our residents that service and access to those coupons without destroying our city. I'm tired of seeing them in catch basins. I'm tired of seeing them all around, and it's long overdue, and at this point, I'm sick of having them here.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Guanasso.
This is an ongoing battle that Councilor Janino's having and sharing with the rest of the council. We voice our opinions on this every time this is brought up. This is an unsightly manner going on in our community. I think it behoves us to ask the mayor if he could put the city solicitor onto this, because this is certainly a violation of rights. Some people just don't want this, and they leave it out on their sidewalk, and they leave it out on their stairs in protest of them delivering it. And the people delivering it could care less. They're going to throw these things at you anyway. It doesn't matter where they land, where they go. They don't care if you read it, if you don't read it. They're just being paid to do a job, and they do it as poorly as possible. So I think we should do use any legal resource that we can put within our grips and go after them, because this is absolutely, they're littering. What they're doing, they're littering our community. Now, if they have a legal right to disperse these, we have a legal right to charge them for littering. So we know where they're coming from, so we just go to the source. We can't sue this Globe, so we go after the deliverer, and whoever the delivering agency is, and we sue them. So we have to get some sort of relief from this, because it really is unsightly in our community. Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Thank you, Councilor Guanasso. Any fellow councilors wishing to speak? Councilor Morbido.
If my colleague was up for it, I was thinking maybe we can put in another motion to have a letter on behalf of the city council sent to the company expressing our concern. That may help as well, along with that.
I believe we've already done that. We've requested them to appear before us. This is not the first time this has happened. This is probably the fourth.
Whatever goes, yep.
Any other councilors?
Mr. President.
Councilor Novoselsky.
Just, I know we've been dealing with this for 3 or 4 years now, and I know I had some motions in way back when, and I'm glad our ladies picked it up again. But I think maybe it's time to ask our Board of Health to send them fines for littering. All the information is right on one of those pamphlets that they send out on the freebies. Just to start sending them some fines and see how they react to that.
Good point, Councilor Novoselsky. Would you like to amend the motion to add that? Councilor
Absolutely.
Janino?
And I hope that we can vote on this evening.
Councilor Rotundo?
It's scary when me and Ira Novoselsky thinks alike. Yeah, we've got to find them to death.
See what we did? We brought you together over trash. All right. All in favor?
Calendar item number 54, motion presented by Councilor McKenna, that the mayor add to the capital improvement plan for FY18 the following streets to be repaved: Pearl Ave, Crescent Ave, Broadsound Ave, Wilson Street, and Green Street. In addition, that the sidewalks on Belle Isle Ave be repaired. Students commuting to school have to walk in the street due to the poor condition of the sidewalk.
Any councilors wishing to speak? Councilor Rotundo.
Actually, those areas are horrible, especially Broad Street. It's absolutely horrible. Clearly, this needs to be looked at right away. And I know we're going through an assessment program through the city and so forth, but when you're talking about children, this needs to take paramount. Thank you.
I would agree. Any other councilors? Motion to approve?
Calendar item number 56, motion presented by Councilor Rotundo, that the mayor provide the city council with a copy of the following: the assessment center questions and scope of work, a copy of the feasibility study conducted at the DPW yard to include soil sampling results, a copy of the audit conducted almost 2 years ago, a detailed copy of the cost of attorney Matt Buckley since January of 2016, and a copy of the chief of police contract between the city of Revere and former Chief Caffarelli.
Councilor Rotundo.
This is basically a reiteration of things that I've asked for in the past. I would also ask for the recent bore studies from Weston and Sampson that was down at the Revere DPW recently. Quite frankly, I don't know why we have to wait for this. In fact, if you all recall, Arlington Chief Ryan said to my question that this is a public document regarding the assessment center, questions and so forth. I don't know why we have to go through hoops to do it. And currently, I'm dealing with a FOIA with the city of Revere in order to get information that I've never had to deal with in my history of dealing with mayors. Not with Mayor Dan Rizzo, not with Mayor Ambrosino. So I'm hoping that I can get this as a counselor instead of having to file another Freedom of Information Act. That quite frankly, it's very, very telling of a lack of transparency. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Rotundo. Councilor Janino.
Just a point of information, the assessment's in our packet and it's dated July 20th. So we did receive that recently, but I have the full assessment right here.
But they don't have the
Councilor
questions and they don't have the delineation of commentary, which is part of the process.
Any other councilors? Councilor Morabito.
This motion has two irrelevant things in one motion. It's two pieces of information compacted into one motion. We need to separate it, I believe.
Point of order.
Go for it.
State your point.
As I said before, this is a reiteration of things that I've been denied in the past, that I've asked for in the past, and I'm asking collectively to have them as they are information-based.
Thank you, Councilor.
Point of order.
State your point.
Why would this have to go to Ways and Means? There's no financial bearing on it. I'm asking for information.
So you'd like a roll call vote?
Yes, please.
Sounds good. Can we, the motion as is, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. We have a roll call?
On Councilor Rotundo's motion, Councilor Gino?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Guanasso?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor McKenna is absent. Councilor Morabito? Yes. Councilor Novoselsky?
No.
No. Councilor Patch?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Powers?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rotundo?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Zambudo?
Yes.
Yes. And Council Vice President Keefe?
Yes.
Yes, the motion has been approved.
Mr. President, may we suspend rules in order so this, and take up the motion? so-
Suspension of rules and hopes to not prevail.
Calendar item number 57, motion presented by Councilors Novoselsky and Powers, that the following special legislation be approved and forwarded to the state delegation. An act eliminating the preliminary election in the city of Revere in 2017. Be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives in general court assembled and by the authority of the same as follows. Section 1, notwithstanding any general or special law to the contrary, there shall be no preliminary election in the city of Revere as otherwise required on September 12, 2017, for either the office of school committee for a 2-year term or for the office of city council for a 2-year term. All candidates whose nomination papers have been duly certified shall be deemed to have been nominated, and their names shall appear on the general election ballot. Section 2, this act shall take effect upon its passage.
Councilor Novoselsky.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, this is not the first time we're doing this in the city. Actually, as far as I know, it's the third time. We did it in 03, we did it in 09, and we did it in 2011. And the reason we did it was because there was either one or two candidates for council at large at that point, and that was the only council seat that was involved in it. Now, it doesn't affect me a bit, and I was not coerced to do this. Nobody asked me to do this. I'm doing this for the benefit of the city. It costs $60,000 to run an election, whether it be a preliminary election or an election. And in order to eliminate two people and the number of people that come to vote in a preliminary election in the city, which is probably averaging about 10% over the city, which is very, very low, especially we only get one position that is being challenged. And we've done it before, and I think we could take that $60,000 and use it for a good cause and put it somewhere for the kids in the city of Revere. You know, I think it's $60,000 that can be transferred and moved when the time comes. I think, you know, it's something to do with the money, and we can do anything with as far as the kids are as far as I'm concerned, to help the kids, whether it be in the rec, whether it be in the SUDI program, anything. So, you know, I just think that, and nobody asked me to do this. The mayor did not ask me to do this. Councilor Powers did not ask me to do this, but Councilor Powers felt that it was worthwhile to discuss and wanted to be on this motion. So, you know, all these naysayers that talk all over the city, you're wrong again. So take it from me, who is doing it, and only me that thought of it, nobody else. So I ask this council to consider this and think about what we want to do. We'd have to send this to the legislature like we have in the past and get this preliminary election eliminated. Now, realizing too, and just let me add this, that because of the mistake that was made, tomorrow is the last day for nominations. And I would think that if more people come in tomorrow before 5 o'clock, we should bring it back and reconsider it.
Thank you, Councilor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. President. I think that 12 candidates, 11 candidates, I think this, by eliminating this primary, it gives the candidates and the citizens of this city a better chance to engage in dialogue as to what the issues are really facing the city. I would think that, excuse me, if certainly by 5 o'clock tomorrow evening, there were several more candidates that filed papers, I think that perhaps we might even consider this. But I think to spend $50,000 to $60,000 to have a primary, to eliminate two individuals, I think is just crazy. I think I'm saying right out, it's a waste of taxpayers' money. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Councilor Powers. Councilor Patch.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. It also doesn't affect me. I do agree with the co-makers of the motion. The mayor didn't ask me. There's no conspiracy. It's just that it's $65,000, and I feel that first of all, I did contact 5 of the candidates that I know, and basically they don't care. So I feel that it's in order that for the amount of the vote that will show up, for the trouble it causes at schools, for the kids, it's just ridiculous for two votes, 2 candidates. So I'd be in favor of this. And again, like they say, if more step forward tomorrow, then fine, we'll just have a primary. But as the way it stands today, I feel that it's a waste of money for the city, and it puts a lot of people in hardship. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Patch. Councilor Rotundo.
Let me guess. I disagree. I totally disagree. And I'm sure that comes as a shocker to you all. I disagreed in the past, testified at the State House for it. We're not in financial dire straits. We have well over $6 million in the stabilization account. $60,000 is the arithmetic related to our council stipends, if you want to talk about spending money. We just gave $60,000 plus for community parks, which is fine. But I never trust the process when a politician gets involved in it. There's a reason why we have preliminary primaries that were rooted in our foundation as a city, in our charter. If that's the case, then perhaps we should change the charter accordingly so that we never have a primary, and maybe we should also run coterminous with the mayor. Would you feel comfortable with that? Because by doing this, you lend more power to one seat of government versus another. And with that said, I'm totally against it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Rotundo. Councilor Zambudo.
Thank you, Mr. President. Not surprisingly, I disagree with my colleague to my right completely. And I remember many years ago when I was first running, I would have been thrilled to be left on the ballot and as a newcomer that was not known, to be guaranteed a place in the final ballot would have been a big bonus to me. And I'm sure newcomers may feel that same way. They may not, but I can see if there's, like my colleague to my far right said, if there's another person that jumps in tomorrow, all bets are off. But if there's only 12 people, to eliminate 2 people for $65,000 is a waste of money. I don't care how you slice it. It's not taking anybody's rights away. It's guaranteeing them a seat on the final ballot. So you can try to convince me that takes somebody's rights away. I don't see it. So I'm in support of this. I was in support of it the last time we did it. And I didn't hear one complaint the last time we did it. And so that's it. I support this motion, and I'll vote in favor of it.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Morabito.
Thank you. So if you go back in the past, the city council has voted down to have elections. 2 years ago, we voted to have a primary because there was another race. There was a mayoral race. But if you look at the results in the election 2 years ago, from the primary to the general election, not only did everyone come in the same placement, I said only one person got eliminated, and we spent all that money just for one person to be eliminated and everyone to come in the same placement. So I think this is $50,000 that can go that can be used toward election equipment, or maybe be transferred over to a different department, vets or senior citizens or something of that nature. But when all said is done, why waste $50,000? Why? If anything, everyone makes it to the general. Everyone's going to go out and get their votes, all the candidates. So it's not going to make much of a difference. Also, 2 years ago, if you look at the turnout, it doubled in the primary. It doubled in the general election from the primary election. So I really am not in favor. I am not in favor of this. I am in favor of it. Yeah, there we go.
Thank you, Councilor. Any other councilors wishing to speak? Councilor Guanasso.
Mr. Vice President, you give me those eyes tonight all night long. We referred to politicians, don't leave it in the hands of politicians. Well, I got news for everybody sitting in this room and everybody watching on TV. We are elected people. We are politicians. We are public servants. You did entrust us with your finances, and $60,000 saved, as was mentioned previously, by the elimination of just 2 people is ludicrous. And the most important factor, let's not forget, I venture to say that there was 41% in a hotly contested mayoral contest 3 years ago. In a primary, September 12th of this coming year, with 12 individuals running for the council at large, we'd be lucky to get 8 to 9% out. That is not reflection of the community. That is not anything, the indicator of anything to anybody. Anybody can win an election with 8% coming out. It doesn't give a good projection for the goodwill of all the people we serve. I think the greater number that comes out better serves government because you have a across-the-board reaction. And I suggest very strongly, I would be shocked that come November if we even reach the 25% turnout. That means that 7.5 people that go to polls, that are on the books as registered voters, don't show up to vote. It means that people have lost interest in city government and in all government. We have to make it interesting for them to come out and vote. And we're trying to do that. We're trying to give them a good community and give them an interest to come out and show it and be part of it. That's the only role that they have, to go out and show an interest in your community. So to save $60,000, to put to any advantage that we might choose, or whatever the mayor so sees fit to do so with it, there's so many good things we could do with that money. So many good things. But just to say you're not going to eliminate anybody theoretically. Any person with caliber and strength is going to place at least 10th. And anybody else who can't get that many people to support their candidacy, well, let them try again. That's the process. You try and try until you succeed, I suppose. But I think that we're not cheating anybody. We're not depriving anybody. I think we're doing a goodwill for our community. Thank you, Mr. Vice President.
Thank you, Councilor. Councilor Janino.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I agree with all of the comments that my colleague to my left made. You said it perfectly, Councilor Guanasso. And, if it was a situation like some of my other colleagues stated where there were more people, it would make more sense to me. I totally respect that and understand it. And being a part of several elections, I can remember the last primary I went to vote down at St. Mary's. I think I was like the 50th person. So there's not a huge turnout on those days, and it's a great expense to the city. And, think about the police details, think about all the other parts that play into this, aside from just the poll workers and the expense of the city to run an election. And when I think about $60,000, it might sound like a small amount in terms of a city budget, but that's the salary of a new police officer or a firefighter or someone on the DPW. It could be 2 part-time people on the DPW, and that's what I think about.
Thank you, Councilor. If I may, I think that there's been a lot of good comments on both sides of this. I get to speak here first, and I'll be happy to invite anyone up that would like to speak on this. Not a problem. On both sides, a lot of great comments. I agree with most of them. I don't agree that there's some weird conspiracy or fix, but I also don't agree that we should get rid of the primary. I know that it's a $50,000 to $60,000 cost, and I know that's a lot of money, but I hate to change the rules of a game in the middle of the game. And we're around the third quarter of that game, and I would feel a lot more comfortable waiting until after the election season to say, as a city charter ordinance, to change it to reduce the primary if there's less than 12 candidates or 12 or less candidates. But this late in the game, I don't like that. And there's so much distrust in national politics and politics in general that I think this adds to that. And I'm not saying anyone's doing it intentionally. I know that there's good reasons behind it, and I appreciate it. And the council has done it before. They've done it years ago under different administrations. And I know the reasons were probably the same reasons they're doing it today. But my feeling is we set to have a primary on September 12th. We should stick to that. And you know what? If you would disagree, that's perfectly fine. But that's just my feelings. Anyone wishing to speak on this? State your name and address for the record, please.
Wayne Rose, 189 Coolidge Street, Revere, Mass. The only thing that I would like to see is the 4 people involved in that race to recluse themselves. These guys recluse themselves from other things. Why should they vote on something like this? Me myself, I don't care. I don't want the primary. So, but I'd like them to recluse themselves. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Nick Malayson, 143 Lantern Road. As one of the candidates myself, same as Wayne, the 4 incumbents would recuse themselves. And I'm all for it. Let's just eliminate the primary. To eliminate 2 people doesn't make a difference to me. Let's go right on to November. Like Ira said, if anyone else joins the race, then all bets are off and we go to a primary.
Thank
Thank you.
Ralph DeChico, 49 Washington Street. I have no skin in the game, but I'm in agreement with you, Vice President Keefe. It is, I say it's later than the third quarter. There's no Tom Brady on the field. It's very late in the game to do this. A lot of people could have maybe wanted to get in it, but there's no primary. I agree that the charter should be changed and you decide if you're going to have a primary or not. It's an election shouldn't be based on how much it's going to cost for a primary or whatnot. It's been out there that when the election commission stated the dates and whatnot, it's been out there that a primary was scheduled for the certain date. I say you still should have the primary. It shouldn't come down to dollars and cents for it. A primary should be out there. Whether you're eliminating 2 people, 1 people, 3, or whatnot, you should still have a primary.
Thank you. Anyone else wishing to speak? Roll call.
Roll call on the special legislation. Councilor Janino?
Excuse me, point of information. What do we need for a vote for this? Majority?
Point of order.
Point.
Why isn't
Can I-
this going to committee for review? Like everything else that goes into committee for review? Can you explain that?
You have a motion to place in committee?
That's the discretion of the president. I'm just curious as to why he didn't do it.
I felt tonight would be a good, I think we got everything out that we needed to. If you felt there was more, I'd give you some leniency to talk on it, sir.
Mr.
If I
President,
can add a point
I'm
of
going to honor the
we're
other
not having a
council.
meeting until August 24th, I believe. Is that correct? Sometime? That'd be way too late, exactly.
Mr. President,
Councilor Rotundo.
I'm going to honor the request of the people that are running for office as well, and I'm going to recuse myself. I will tell you this much. To do it like this really, really puts a very onerous taste among the population as to the legitimacy of this type of a motion. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Rotundo.
I'm going to address some of my friends that think that the incumbent councilor should recuse themselves. First of all, we're automatically on the ballot as an incumbent. There's no advantage to not having a primary. I don't see the point. There is no advantage to an incumbent not having a primary. I don't see it.
Point of order.
I'm in favor of eliminating it, so I'm voting for it.
Through me, Councilor Zambudo, through me, please.
That's it, that's all I have.
Thank you very
I
much.
just wanted to address that, you already recused
President?
yourself. so
President,
you're-
call the roll, please.
Mr. President,
One at a time, please. Councilor Rotundo, last point, please.
the reason why I recuse myself for Councilor Zambudo's edification is because it is ethically responsible. As this is the, no, sir. As I believe it is the perception that causes the conflict.
Roll call, please.
On the special legislation, Councilor Janino?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Guanasso?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor McKenna is absent. Councilor Morbido? Yes. Councilor Novoselsky?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Patch?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Powers?
Yes.
Yes. Councilor Rotundo? President? Is recused. Councilor Zambudo?
Yes.
Yes. And Council Vice President Keefe?
No.
No, the special legislation will be forwarded to the state delegation.
Suspension of rules, please.
Suspension of rules in hopes to not prevail. All in favor?
Point of personal privilege.
State your point, Councilor.
I'd like the people to know that generally with special legislation of this nature, it doesn't just get sent to the legislator without someone making a phone call beforehand and getting it passed this quickly. To get something passed at the legislator within a 2-month time frame is very difficult, and it takes a lot of political clout to get it done. So for someone to say up here that there wasn't any machinations beforehand, I doubt it.
Councilor Powers?
Thank you, Mr. President. First of all, let me restate that this has no personal interest to me whatsoever. My name is going to be on the ballot no matter what, unless, of course, somebody files tomorrow in Ward 5 and we have 3 candidates, then my name would still be on the ballot. And as far as any ethical questions that have been raised, and the fact that it's been insinuated that our elected officials that represent us in state government, I would hope and I do believe that they have the knowledge and the compassion for the taxpayers in this city to get this legislation passed in the State House. Thank you, Mr.
Mr. President? Was the school committee notified of this, by the way? Considering that there's...
Let me, hang on one second. Councilor Patch.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I just want to say again, listen, there's no conspiracy or sneaky stuff going on here. It's just, I feel that the $65,000 in the inconvenience to the Garfield Beachmont Lincoln School, as well as a North Revere Fire Station, that it's the best interest to the citizens of Revere that we do not have a primary. That's why I voted the way I did. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor, I'll grant you one more leniency, and we're going to move on to the next one. Are you good?
I'm just wondering if the school committee was involved in this process, and do they know about it?
The school committee has access to our motions, and I'm sure they're well aware of it.
Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, I have no interest in this also.
We're going to move on to the next topic.
I just honestly believe, I came here thinking that everybody was for this. I didn't think there'd be any opposition. I didn't think there'd be any kind of trickery or something like that. I mean, for God's sakes, we've done it in the past, and it wasn't trickery then, and it worked to the best interest of the community. I don't see how this is trickery. I don't see where it's a last-minute action. It just so happens to be that the papers filed at a particular time had a lack of candidates. And that always comes at the end. It doesn't come 2 months ahead of time. You don't know that until you find out how many candidates are running. So it's not something that's preconceived months in advance. This is something that's brought in just for goodwill. It's not no ill intent for this at all. I don't see what the
Thank you, Councilor
debate is
Grasso.
about.
Moving on to the next motion.
Calendar item number 58, motion presented by Councilor Zambudo, that the mayor and the Revere City Council honor the contract between the City of Revere and Lieutenant Joseph Caffarelli. Further, that the mayor pay back the former chief from July 1st to present.
Councilor Zambudo.
So I put this in for my colleague. However, there is certainly precedent here. I sat on this council when Chief Reardon was replaced, and he was offered a position at his former rank. And so, in my mind, that sets a precedent. For some reason, this administration decided not to do that. I don't know their reasons. They may be good reasons. However, I don't, we just talked about precedent, how on a matter that's a little contentious here that I didn't expect to be, we're eliminating a primary, which we've done in the past. But there's precedent for that, like there's precedent for reappointing a chief that has been replaced to his former position on the police department. So I guess that's pretty much what the motion says, and so I'm certainly in favor of the motion, and that's why I decided to present it for my colleague.
Councilor Patch.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I had the pleasure of voting for Joe Caffarelli for chief 5 years ago. And I also made my point well known that I favored Joe Caffarelli. The reason why is because I happen to work with his father in the police department, his uncles. I worked with Joe, his brother, and Joe became my street supervisor, and he became my lieutenant, my commander. He's the most audible guy that I know and worked with. I'd go to any call with him behind me, but that's all said and done. The mayor, I made my point to the mayor, and he disagreed. That's his right to disagree, and we have a new chief, and I am going to work with Chief Guido. I feel that I can work with Chief Guido, but and it was the mayor's right to do what he did. But as far as what's going on now, I just can't live with. I mean, he has a family support. He has a nice young family, and as the other councilor, as Councilor Zambudo said, the same thing happened with Captain Reardon. I mean, it was a smooth. It was a smooth transaction back to the police department, and he's there. He's now the XO. I mean, and I don't see any reason why he's without pay, about to lose his insurance. When it says in his contract that the city recognized that the chief holds the civil service position of lieutenant in the Revere Police Department, the city agrees to allow the chief to take a leave of absence from the civil service rank. The chief shall retain all vacation and sick time benefits that he will accumulate until the commencement of this agreement. That's his contract. So honor his contract, and if there's other stuff that we don't know about down the road, then it falls where it may. Let it fall where it may. But I think as a council, we should send a message that Joe should get his money back that he's lost, and he should get his position of lieutenant. And that's the way I feel. I feel he's a very, believe me, he's a very capable lieutenant. He was a very good leader, and as I say, he was my shift commander for several years. So I know. So, again, if there's something else there, we weren't made aware of it. All I'm aware of is what's in his contract. And I want his contract honored. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Janino.
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. I think that we've all had several opportunities in this council to state how we feel about this individual. He's a great individual and has dedicated his entire professional career to the city of Revere. He was a police officer in the city years and years and years before he was a chief in the city, and I have a lot of respect for him for that. Every mayor that's held office has the right to appoint his own head of staff. Every other mayor has. Mayor Ambrosino did, Mayor Rizzo did, before that Mayor Haas did. And as the mayor, that's something that you're granted. You can choose your police chief, your fire chief, and as a city council, we respect that. And we usually support the mayor in his decision in his office to make those decisions. However, as the city council, it's also our responsibility to make sure that our employees are protected and that contracts are honored. He dedicated his entire professional career to the city of Revere. He has a family, he has responsibilities, and there's something missing here, and I don't quite know what it is, but I think that his contract should be honored. His family and his children should not have to worry about their health insurance over an issue that, we're not aware of. So this is not about who's chief. This is not about any other decision other than honoring a contract for someone that served the city of Revere for their entire professional career. And it's disappointing that this is being a political issue and that this is an issue about, you know, who versus who and all the things that are around it, because it's not. It's about someone that served the city of Revere for their entire professional career and them just getting what they deserve as an employee. And it's tough for me because I've known both candidates my entire life. And Chief Guido is going to do great. He's a great guy. I'm incredibly happy for him and his family. But this is not about that. It's not about that at all. So I hope that we can stay neutral and stay level-headed and just do what we have to do to make the situation right.
Thank you. Thank you. Councilor Guanasso.
Mr. Vice President, certainly, as Councilor Janino alluded to the fact that every previous mayor in the history of the city of Revere under Plan B has appointed their own chief. There's no question about it. But every single mayor since then has also allowed, if the chief so desired, upon retirement or replaced, was allowed a position within the department. This is the first I've heard of an individual being displaced based on what I understand, and it's only a rumor mill out there, that maybe he wasn't, somebody in his family or somebody wasn't making the proper comments about somebody, and this is how it affected this individual. This individual has done a first-class job. He served the community for 5 years as a chief. Not one time in those particular 5 years was there ever a bad word said about Chief Caffarelli. If the word was said at all, is that he was gung-ho. He was there ready for action. He was there to serve the community, but he also shared a common love for the job, and it showed it in his being. Head of the SWAT team. Now, certainly, how many chief of police do you know of that serve in the SWAT team? This is a person that's very interested in serving the community and other communities also. So he's been to that event. So I just feel it's doing not only Chief Caffarelli a disservice, but it's doing the citizens of Revere a disservice. This individual should be allowed back into the police department. He should come in with respect that he so deservedly needs and requires and should get. And we should just let things go as they go. Now, if there's an underlying factor that we're not unaware of, bring that to light. Let us know about that. But I think former Chief Caffarelli certainly belongs back in the police department, and that's no disrespect to our acting Chief Guido. He was given the job. He's going to do the job. He's already working very, very well with me in some issues that I've had in Ward 3, and I give him nothing but high praise. But certainly, the right thing to do would be put a former Chief Caffarelli back on the payroll.
Thank you. Councilor Morabito.
Thank you. This is redundancy. We all spoke highly of the chief 2 council meetings ago. We all praised him. We all think highly of him. We all think he did a remarkable job. And we all respect the fact that the mayor gets to appoint his chief. But at the end of the day, each and every one of us want to know, why isn't a contract being honored if in the past it has been honored? Or why isn't he being put in the position of lieutenant as past chiefs of police? So with that said, I think what we can all agree on is why. So I make a substitute motion to go into executive session with the mayor and have him give this council a reason for why, and this will help us understand what is going on, because it can't be blind to his eyes if it's blind to our eyes. It just can't be. There must be information behind there, and I think we should follow through with the substitute motion, and I think this is a great motion on behalf of my colleague Rotundo, but I think we should get an answer why, and I don't think I'm sorry?
No, no, go ahead.
Councilor
Continue.
Morbido has the floor.
Go.
You can finish.
I'll allow Councilor Zambudo to speak.
What I wanted to say is, I think we should leave the first motion intact the way it is. If you want to have a separate motion that brings the mayor and us into executive session to discuss personnel matters, that's another issue. But what I want to know, and what this motion really speaks to, is precedent. There was precedent for this with the last chief and the chief before that, and I want to stick to the precedent. I want to know why we're deviating from the precedent. The other issue, if there's some kind of a matter that they think warrants termination, then they can tell us that in executive session, so we're not impugning anybody's integrity or anything like that. So I think we can have both motions, but I don't want to substitute this motion and eliminate what it does, because this is asking why we're not sticking to precedent here and allowing the chief to continue.
Well,
Thank you.
So what I'll ask is that the fellow councilors speak on this current motion, and then and if Councilor Morbido would like to offer a secondary motion, he can also offer that.
Can I continue?
Councilor Morbido.
Okay, thank you. Would Councilor Rotundo be willing to add that amendment to his motion? Oh, it's Councilor.
It's my motion.
Zambudo's motion.
Councilor Zambudo has taken up this motion. Councilor Novoselsky.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, everything everybody has said here is the same thing I was going to say. But I want to congratulate Councilor Morbido for his thoughts, and I think they're great thoughts. And Councilor Zambudo kind of stole it from me, but I'm glad. I'd rather see us move forward on the contract wording that shows that he should be on the payroll. And again, it has nothing against Chief Guido or anybody else. We know he should be on the payroll as a lieutenant. And then I do think we should do a second motion, even though it's not written here, that we do it right now as a verbal motion, that we go into executive session, whether it be in 2 weeks or whether it be on the 24th of August, so be it. Either one, I don't care. But I think we should. We're entitled to hear what the issue is, for us to understand what's going on. So, those are my thoughts on it, and I think we ought to make a move on it right now. Thank you.
Councilor Powers.
Thank you, Mr. President. I don't want to be redundant, but I think it needs to be said. The mayor had the perfect right, as we all know, to name a chief of his choosing. No question about it. And I supported him. However, by all accounts, Joseph Caffarelli was an excellent police officer, did a great job, had no blemishes that I know of on his record. And if there are, or were, and still are, problems, then I think the mayor should have called us definitely long before this into executive session and give us the opportunity to understand those problems and, if necessary, take the necessary action that would be required. But I think just to strip someone of their health care, their pay, etc., I cannot support that, and I will not support it, no matter if it's Mr. Caffarelli or any other employee of this city. I would want to know exactly why we're doing this, and I cannot support that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Powers. Councilor Rotundo?
Thank you. And if you could give me no leeway, we'll get it done in 3 minutes. Number one, this idea that there's this surreptitious issue before Chief Caffarelli. If that was the case, My understanding is the contract states that the mayor has to reprimand him according to progressive corrective action. He did not, and he has not, number one. Number two, if he was to do that, Chief Caffarelli, in his rank at that time, would have the right and the opportunity to ask for a public hearing. That did not take place. Number three, the contract is a product honored by this city. It is a vehicle by which the people of Revere instill its integrity in, so that when we fulfill a contract, whether it will be with a lieutenant, a captain, a company, or anybody else, it is in the good faith of this city, this council, and for the mayor not to honor that is beyond me. If it is true that the mayor has not provided any income to Joe Caffarelli from the time of his last date of service, as well as not provided him COBRA if in the event he does not have insurance, with 2 children, one of them who has a need, that is reprehensible at its lowest foundation. This is very troubling to me. And I've heard the stories, and I've spoken to some people. They believe it's political in nature. They believe it has to do with an internal struggle within the police department regarding another case. They believe it's the mayor using Matt Buckley, our city.
Okay, stick to the motion, please.
And
this
I'm
is in
sticking
regards
to
to
the motion.
Lieutenant Caffarelli.
I'm sticking to the motion.
Thank you.
And we believe that I have a right to speak, correct?
You absolutely have a right to speak, but you have a
Thank
right
you.
to stick within the
And
motion.
some
You know
people-
that.
And some people think that this is a witch hunt. And that's why he's not being allowed back on the force. Just like was done with several other employees within the city. So at the end of the day, I really hope that we do have an executive session. And quite honestly, that's part of the reason why I want an audit by the state auditor. Because obviously, if the mayor says that there are problems, this is one of them.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
Councilor Zambudu, finish this up.
I'll be really brief. I just want to separate this out. This is about precedent, and I've said it several times. I don't want to get back into that. But I don't want to think that in any way this is any kind of a argument against our new chief, who I have complete confidence in, Chief Guido. Almost made a mistake there. So this has nothing to do with the mayor's ability to appoint a chief, although I disagreed with, I was hoping to keep Chief Caffarelli on. I made that clear to the mayor, and I made that clear to my dear friend Chief Guido now. But I'm with Chief Guido 100%. I don't want anybody to think that what we're doing here tonight has anything to do with that. This is completely separate, and this is just about keeping the former chief on as a lieutenant, as has been done in the past. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Zambudo. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask that we vote on this tonight in the motion as it's originally stated, and then Councilor Morabito has a subsequent motion that he would like to add in as a brief late. Roll call. Already called the roll. Okay, come on.
Wayne Rose, 189 Coolidge Street, Revere, Mass. I had my differences with Chief Caffarelli, but you guys have to honor his contract. There's no reason, no rhyme for this. You guys are just disrespecting the poor guy after all he's done for our city. So I please just ask that you
I don't think there's anyone just disagreeing with you in the fact
No,
that
that's
we'd
fine.
like to honor his contract.
I just want you to honor his contract.
We would also, and if I can state my point on this as well before we vote, is there's certainly a lot of things that we'd like to know and get the bottom of that we may not know. So the secondary motion with the executive session would probably be very good. So I'm going to ask that we take a roll call on this motion.
This is on the motion presented by Councilor Zambudo that the mayor and the Revere City Council honor the contract between the City of Revere and Lieutenant Joseph Caparelli. Further, that the mayor back pay the former chief from July 1st to present. Counselor Janino?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Granasso?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor McKenna is absent. Counselor Morabito?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Novoselsky?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Patch? Yes. Counselor Powers?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Rotundo?
Yes.
Yes. Counselor Zambuto?
Yes.
Yes. And Council Vice President Keefe?
Yes.
Yes, the motion has been approved.
Councilor Morabito, would you like to create a motion?
Sure. For the mayor to go into executive session so we can have a better understanding to why Chief Caffarelli is going without pay or why he didn't remain on the police department. I also would like to say, with that motion put in, if I wasn't clear enough before, I do not think he should be on leave without pay, or I don't even know if he's on leave, or if he's suspended, or if he was fired. I did not hear it from the mayor's office itself, and I'd like that information heard. And I'm for, I am a big advocate for the chief, and with all due respect to our current captain, Chief Guido, I think he's going to do a tremendous job. But I want to make clear that I do not think the chief was done right now, from the information I have.
So this, we would ask, is this, yes. Council-
Before
Councilor
we go
Patch.
to the next motion, can we suspend the rules to, so prior motion doesn't...
Suspension of rules so the prior motion does not prevail. All in favor? All right, so on Councilor Morabito's motion, what we would ask is that this be brought up in executive session at the next scheduled council meeting.
And could we have Matt Buckley, City Council, come regarding this issue as well?
I think that would be on the behest of the mayor if he wanted Matt Buckley here, but if we're asking to hear from the mayor, and we would take into consideration that he's
My
offering us the
understanding
truth.
is Matt Buckley is highly involved with this case. I don't believe the mayor has the legal knowledge that Matt Buckley does. I think that would be reasonable to ask him to come forward.
Point of
considering
information,
it's
there's a
$100,000.
motion on the table. Can we amend it just to say that the parties involved in this be present?
What we could offer.
Let me echo what you said, no.
Councilor Zambuto is absolutely right. Let's take the politics out of this, and vote on the motion, and let the mayor do what he feels.
In executive session, if the city solicitor was to attend, then I think that would be suffice. Or if the city solicitor felt to have other counsel involved, then they certainly should. I don't know if we should have to pay for someone to come here before our council when we have a city solicitor come here and talk.
Mr. Vice President? Can the party that this is being discussed over attend as well? Can we also make sure that he's invited and has the opportunity to be here?
A point of order. I believe
State
if
your
there's any legal action pending, it would not include him. Although I can guarantee there are some people up here that would defend his position. I would say I believe that there's a fine line here in this particular issue. We should probably get some governance from the city solicitor.
I think that simplifying it, all invested parties in this case would be invited to attend. All in favor?
Calendar item number 59, motion presented by Councilor Rotundo, that the City of Revere conduct a residential moratorium of large-scale residential construction of 40 units or more. Further, that the City Council study the impact of large-scale residential construction on our school, traffic, public safety, and existing infrastructure. Likewise, that the above motion be translated into a non-binding ballot question and voted on during the upcoming general municipal election.
Councilor Rotundo.
Thank you. Personally, for me, I believe that at this point, when we have so much development in the city, in particular development that has gone into commercial spaces in the past, I think that we need to start looking at this and quite frankly, the Land Use Committee, which is in the following motion, is also, I think, what we need to do. With all due respects, we have a development happening down by the current development on the beach that was a matter of right, which is 270 condos or whatever it is. And the Lasdens, I believe, have a property that is now going to be utilized for, residential development, which is fine, I get that. But my issue is we need to start figuring out what we're going to do with this, because at this point, our schools are overcrowded. Traffic the other day, without the Sandcastle Festival, takes anywhere between 20 to 30 minutes to get from Broadway to the Point of Pines. More importantly, as we continue to congest the city with residential components, it's going to cause a major issue. So I think at the very simple fact of it is we need some type of a moratorium to figure out where we're going and what we can do as a community. I think also to put it on the ballot to allow the public to rule in on this, to have a better understanding of how the public feels in a non-binding ballot question, would also give the council good sense and direction. Thank you.
Council Powers.
Thank you, Mr. President. For the edification of my colleagues, it's 234 units, 67% of which are one-bedroom and studio units. As far as a moratorium and the property next door, they are going before site plan review tomorrow, and I intend to be at that meeting. I do support a moratorium right now, and I will vote yes on the moratorium. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Council Powers. Any other councils wishing to speak? Would you like this to go into zoning?
Committee, please.
All opposed, all in favor? Go to zoning.
Calendar item number 60, motion presented by Councilor Rotundo that the City Council form a land use subcommittee to provide input on future land use and planning in the city of Revere.
Speaks for itself.
Roll call. Move to committee. Which committee would you like this to go into?
Zoning.
This is going to go into zoning.
There's a late communication from the Veterans Affairs Director relative to memorial installations for Sidney Rigoff and Jerry Delina.
Mrs. Silvestri, name and address for the record, please.
Mark Silvestri, 198 Sergeant Street, Revere, Mass.
Thank you.
Well, thank you, Honorable Council. I'm here tonight to ask you to vote on or to approve memorial pole in the honor of Jerry Delina. I've received a written request from his son, Stephen, who's actually in the crowd tonight. Jerry Delina was not only a war hero, he served our city and its veterans for an amazing 32 years as the Director of Veteran Services. I'm honored to stand here before you tonight. During Mr. Delina's time in his service, he was awarded the Purple Heart several times and multiple Bronze Stars with Valor for his heroics in battle. He was given the legacy Revere. That has earned him a legacy in Revere he should not be denied. With this memorial, Jerry will be remembered forever by his children, their children, and many generations. We'll be able to keep Jerry's name forever where it belongs, on the street he called home in the city he loved, Revere. Thank you for your immediate attention. Mark Silvestri. I also have a DD 214 of Mr. Delina and the location of where the memorial pole will go. It's at the corner of Gore and Graves. If you'd like to see it here.
Mr. President.
Councilor Novoselsky.
Knowing Jerry and his great job that he did, he was in the same position that VSO was And Jerry was there for many years. His son Steve was on the fire department for many years. And not only would I recommend that the gold star be placed on that sign, but also the city seal where he was a city director, and that is authorized by our rules for city officials. So I'd ask that both the seal and the star be placed on the sign for Jerry.
Thank you. Any other
Thank you.
councils? Before we go to vote, all I would say is I don't happen to know this man, but going off of your recommendation, Mark, and knowing what service he's done for our country, it's too often that we memorialize people after they've passed. So to do a dedication while someone is still with us. No, he's not? Oh, well, I guess I apologize. I was under the impression he was still with us. Well, then I think that takes that away, and we're memorializing his past. I wish we were able to do something a little sooner. Motion to approve? All in favor?
My next one, I've received a written request from the family of Sidney Rigoff. Mr. Rigoff is no longer in Revere due to his illnesses. His family had to remove him from his home on Francis Street not too long ago due to his pancreatic cancer and early onset of Alzheimer's and dementia. Mr. Rigoff not only fought in World War II, the Korean War, but he also fought in the Vietnam War. This is a veteran that we don't see many of. 247 of them served in Massachusetts. How many of them are still alive? I couldn't even find that. Not many are. Mr. Rigoff is still alive. He lives in North Carolina, where his family has to take care of him because of his age. His family, I asked for a memorial pole be put up on an island of land on Francis Street. I also have that here as well. If you could pass this around, please, and see what the island looks like as of today.
Motion to approve.
Go on a little further, Counselor. I was visited by a member of your council today. When he's seen the motion, he's voting to table it. He doesn't believe that because Mr. Rigoff has died, he should deserve his, he wants him to die before he gets his honors.
Yeah, no, as far as I'm concerned, he deserves his
President,
honor.
point
He
of
served
order.
in 3
Point of
wars.
order. Who has the floor?
Mr. Silvestri, finish up.
Through you, Mr. President?
Councilor Rotundo.
To Mr. Silvestri, I do apologize. Like you, I believe that this person who served in 3 wars, I don't care if he is deceased or if he's with us, he deserves the honor bestowed upon him for his status and service of this country, and I, for one, will vote for this today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Rotundo.
Mr. President.
Councilor Novoselsky. Mr. Silvestri?
That's all I wanted to add in there. Along with a memorial pole, if we cannot do a memorial pole, the family would like to purchase a park bench on its own, place it up at the site of Francis Street. As the Director of Veteran Service, I will make it my duty to keep that maintained as long as I'm here as the director.
Thank you, Mr. Silvestri. Councilor Novoselsky?
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, yes, I did speak to Mark this afternoon. It really wasn't pleasant, if I may say. I was not given the courtesy to at least let me know that something was going on in my ward. And did he say, do I have to kiss your ring? I never answered him. I just came in as a courtesy to talk to him, and I thought he was pretty rude to me. But let me say this. I believe that triangle already has someone's name designated to it. I don't care. It's been missing for 25 years. That's one of the names that I gave you. So I believe it's already designated for someone. So, I wouldn't want to hurt the family that already has the name on there. So before we put it on there, I would ask that we make sure that it doesn't belong to anybody else. I have no problem with the bench, and I know it is a lousy It's at a dead end of the street where Mr. Rigoff lived, and I know him very well. I know his nephew very well. I played basketball with him. I reffed him. But, I just think we want to make sure that everything is in order before we let this go through.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Rotundo? Any other points?
I'm sure there's been a communication via email or by letter that the council has sent to you. I'm sure you could provide it to the council. You just have to look up your emails and so forth. I would also state that I'm sure the veteran that is probably there, their family, would probably applaud having this other veteran next to them in honor, and more importantly, to have a bench there to signify the dedication of both people. And more importantly, I think it would be a good thing that you yourself are going to keep up that property. And, if it was my ward, which is now Councilor Keefe's ward, you're doing the right thing by the people. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. No, all right. Mr. Silvestri, I applaud your efforts, and I do apologize earlier stating whether I felt that one of the honorees was not deceased. This was the one that we had spoken to prior to the meeting, and I apologize on behalf of the veterans' families. But what I would say is this seems to need a little bit more clarification. I think that we can vote on this tonight in hopes that the Director of Veteran Services would be able to work with Councilor Novoselsky and figure out how to get all of these monuments brought up to status and brought up to the correct status, because I know that there's other ones throughout the city that probably need to get put up. So we want to honor our veterans, and certainly, as mentioned, serving in 3 wars or 3 conflicts over the course of a lifetime is unbelievable. It's probably very rare. So I would definitely want to honor that person. Thank you. Motion to approve.
Council President, just real quick, so I can better understand, when Councilor Novoselsky came to me today, he said that you could have asked, or we should have asked, or whatnot. I'm trying to get the procedure down. I thought the procedure was I write up the motion, I send it to Ashley, she approves it, sends it ahead to y'all, and that's me informing you. I didn't know there was an informal meeting that needed to take place. Am I missing something?
Understood. And I get your point, and I understand it. I think that earlier communication probably would have been warranted as well, and I'm not saying that anyone did anything malicious, and I'm sure that you didn't, and I'm sure that you both gentlemen can figure out how to work better together. Motion to approve. At this point, that ends our council meeting for tonight, and we will see you August 14th for a special council meeting. Thank you and have a great night.